to order the regular meeting of the Carrabelle City Commission. It's Thursday, August 2nd, 2018, 6 p.m. We're at the Carrabelle City Municipal Complex. May I ask Commissioner Cal Allen to say the invocation, and then we'll say the pledge of allegiance to the flag, and please stand.
Our God and Father in heaven, we're so grateful that we have the opportunity to come together tonight in this meeting and discuss and plan for this beautiful city you've given us, and we're thankful for it. We're thankful for all the citizens and their interest in what we're doing. And we pray, Father, that we'll act justly and righteously and for their sake. Thank you for the rain. Thank you again for the rain. And we ask you to be with us in our meeting tonight, and those that have been displaced by the fire as they seek to be recovered into their normal life. In His name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have the consent agenda, and it has the July 5th, 2018 regular meeting minutes, the July 10th special meeting minutes, July 17th, 2018 special meeting minutes, July 26th, 2018 special meeting minutes, and then we also have the attorney's invoices for the month of May. Can we entertain a motion for that consent agenda?
Make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion to approve that agenda. Do we have a second?
Second. Second.
Yeah, thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Mathis, a second by Commissioner Millender. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. And we'll move into public comment. Is there any public comment? Okay, Mr. Steve Allen, please come forward. Let me remind you that public comment is 3 minutes. And we've got a huge agenda tonight.
I'm going to make it 3 minutes
Okay,
less.
thank you.
Last weekend we had a cook-off at Harry's Bar for a fundraiser. 3 years ago, the pirate ship burned. We've been working on raising money. There's $34,000 of insurance that the city has saved and set aside. The mayor advocated and got a TDC funding for $6,000, bringing that total to $40,000, and the community has raised $20,000. Nickels and dimes, kids' piggy banks, all to rebuild that lovely pirate ship, where we used to do plays and pictures were taken and weddings, different birthday parties, and all kinds of sort of things like that. So 3 years later, here we are. We want to get something going. This is just to introduce. I'll come back and talk to you in more detail when I'm on the agenda. This is presented. It is going to be in a new location over the right. It's going to serve as both a theater and a stage and a place for the kids to play. I priced out the parts for the material, and at retail at the Ace Hardware locally, I'm under $10,000 for all the decking for the boat and the materials for the play. And so we'll begin to do a little of the landscaping of the park. I'm going to send you a copy of it so you can kind of look over it and see what you think. And then we'll ask, the modular ship is, I'll produce a set of shop drawings, and then I'm going to look to the public to find some carpenters who can build those exact pieces. So they will all be constructed ahead of time, and then we'll have a sort of a barn raising day. So the next piece is to begin to lay out the landscape and to identify the exact location of the ship so that we can put the low foundation and stuff down for the final assembly. And I just want to keep you guys informed and engaged on that, and ask the public and carpenters out there, Greg and Gary and others that might be interested in taking on one of the groups of parts to help us construct it. And when we get done, it will serve as a place for the community to have movie night maybe once a month, especially when school's off in the winter. and performance, and it's going to be a really nice venue, and we want to see what we can do to add to it afterwards with another project. But I gave you each a copy. It's a little hard to read at the smaller scale. That's available, and there'll be more information on coming. Mine for 3 minutes.
You're doing good.
All right, excellent, excellent. Any questions?
Just say thank you, Steve, and to everyone that's been participating.
Yeah, it's been great. We've had all kinds of volunteers raising money and contributing, and you were at the event at Perry's. I heard it was absolutely packed.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
It was great. It was a
Great.
blowout. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yes, in fact. Thank you.
And thank you. We appreciate you keeping us up to date on it. Okay. Is there any further public comment? Any other public comment? All right, then we'll move on to the commissioners' reports. Commissioner Allen?
I have nothing.
Okay. Commissioner Mathis?
I have nothing.
Okay, then Commissioner Walden?
I have nothing.
All right. Commissioner Melander?
I'll pass.
Okay, then, of course, I've got quite a few things. I'm into a lot of stuff, so I'll try to go quickly. I just want to say one thing. After a second review of the June 2nd Commission meeting minutes, you all may remember that I mentioned that 3 motions were left out. And those motions were actually recorded in those June 7th minutes reported by the clerk, and my handwritten notes were showed the motions in a different location. And as I went back and looked and the clerk pointed it out to me, I did make a mistake on that. I just told her I would correct that. And then now I want to send an apology to Mr. Rod Gashie, who received from the public speaker during public comment at last month's commission meeting, made personal attacks and accusations against him. And as far as I can determine, absolutely none of those comments made by that speaker were based on fact. Our commission meetings are not the place for personal attacks and accusations. It's not the job of this commission to investigate or even take action on those type of comments. It's not the job of this mayor to allow personal attacks on any public person, any commission member, or any staff person during our commission meetings. And going forward, it will not be allowed. And I ask that Mr. Gashie please accept my apology. Then on June 10th, a happier note, Mr. Charlie Painter was promoted to from Advanced Wastewater Treatment Plant Lead Operator to the Water and Sewer Department Superintendent. Mr. Painter has new and innovative ideas for equipment maintenance, capital projects, techniques to reduce overtime, and ways to improve Water and Sewer Department and City Carrabelle Public Relations. So we look forward to working with Charlie in his new position. A member of the public has requested that I report the ISO Insurance Service Office. The ISO building and wind zone ratings for Carrabelle have recently decreased. I was asked to report that EPCI Building Inspection Service has an ISO rating of 3 compared to the Franklin County rating of 9. Ratings range from 1 to 10, with 10 being the worst. ISO ratings affect homeowners' insurance rates just as do the fire ISO ratings that Fire Chief Whaley told us about last month. The City of Carrabelle is now providing a new online building permit search portal. And so you can go online and search for any building permit and see if one has been pulled on a particular property in the city limits. And the portal can be accessed through the city's website on a button at the bottom on the home page on the right-hand side, and it allows the public to see all the permits, locations and names of those who have requested those permits. So most of your questions regarding building permits can now be found easily online. You don't have to necessarily call to City Hall. And I want to thank the clerk for getting that put online so quick and access. Franklin County was recently awarded a grant for funds to set up a collection center for used motor oil. Franklin County will provide a proper container for collection of used oil in the City of Carrabelle and several other locations throughout Franklin County. And the program includes funds to have the oil containers emptied on a routine basis. So the Carrabelle location will be announced as soon as the container is placed by the county, and I want everyone to remember this is a Franklin County project just like the recycling project. The eastern gateway to Carrabelle along Highway 98 is growing with improvements, as you all can see. We expect increased traffic with slowdown for ingress and egress into the new Island View Park, Kendrick Park, the new City Hall, Matt Small Engine, Hammerhead Charter, and Nice Car. The speed limit in this area is 35 miles per hour, not 60. I have requested the chief to place a message board in the area to alert drivers of the speed limit, and I believe that's already been done. Okay, and the highway speed limit is 35 miles an hour from downtown Carrabelle all the way east to the Isle of Rest, where it changes to 45. And this is something that I'd like to bring to the attention of the commission. We're all aware that we have another sunken boat in the river. I've received numerous comments from all walks of life saying this should no longer be allowed to happen. Why is the city allowing it to happen? What is the city going to do about it? When's the city going to get the boat out? And we all know that the city can't do that right now. The city can do something. I talked with Lieutenant Cook, and the city can enact an ordinance to manage moorings in the river. Lieutenant Cook, FWC Lieutenant Cook explained moorings could be allowed in only a certain location, allowed for a certain amount of time, or even no moorings allowed at all, except for emergencies such as weather or mechanical or medical. So if the commission is interested in further investigating, I'll request this topic to be on the November agenda. You can think about it, let Ms. Courtney know, you know, or we can just let things continue as is. All right, that's all I have, and then we will move on to our staff reports with the city attorney.
I have none.
Okay, and Ms. Courtney?
Just a few. On July 5th, Russell with Anovia and I had a conference call with Christina Kroger with the Northwest Florida Water Management District, just following up on the Lighthouse Septic to Sewer project. On the 26th, Russell and the mayor and I met with Sheena Forbes, and we discussed options for water funding through a loan/grant for the Lighthouse Estates area. And I think Russell's got some more information on that he's going to report during his report. The position for the weekend/holiday restroom cleaning has been filled. The security system at the new city hall, they came and installed initially before they put in the sheetrock, the wiring, and they did leave off one of the doors. And they've got to come back before next week to finish out the rest of that system. So they're aware of that, even though we've had a hard time getting them to come back down here. I've made numerous attempts.
Oh, no.
And I talked to Danny with Sperry today, and he said they have to be here by Monday or Tuesday. And that's all I have.
All right, do you all have any questions for Ms. Courtney? I just wanted to ask then about, then we talked about a new time clock system for the new city hall, and then of course phone and internet communications. I guess we need to go ahead and start working on that. And are we interested in having security cameras at City Hall?
Now the phone and internet, they've been over here and they've looked at the building and,
Okay.
and they've been working with Sperry on it.
And I just, if we're interested in security cameras, that's something else that we need to go ahead and plan on. Okay. Is there anything else? All right then, Ms. Keisha.
I just wanted to announce several upcoming meetings. We have a CRA budget workshop August the 14th at 1:30. A general fund budget workshop August 23rd at 5:01. A general fund budget workshop August the 28th if needed. That would be at 1:30. A special meeting for job descriptions August 28th at 2:30. Following the workshop if we have it. Commission meeting September 6th at 6 o'clock. Our tentative budget hearing will be September 13th at 5:01. We have a FDOT workshop, Department of Transportation workshop, September 20th at 10 a.m. A final budget hearing is set for September 24th at 5:01. We will pass our final budgets. And possibly a September special meeting for job descriptions, but we never did quite iron that one out. I was talking to Ms. Usher. We had a P&Z meeting this month, and we had a special exception for a residence in a commercial usage. I did ask the homeowner that he come for the meeting and never heard from him, so he's not on this agenda, but we're discussing, because he's on a deadline too, if we could maybe hold a special meeting on the 14th, the day of the CRA budget workshop, at 1 o'clock. But I'm waiting to hear back from their.
Okay, it seemed like we scheduled, I didn't bring my list, two meetings, or no, just one so far. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we never
do that.
did the last
Well,
one.
just let us know how that
So
works
can we
out.
go ahead and, do you want to go ahead and try and schedule that? And then we can cancel it if we need to. He's kind of on the deadline, but planning and zoning recommended approval, but I wanted him to be able to be here for any questions, because it is on Highway 98.
That's okay with me.
So it would just be 30 minutes before the CRA budget workshop, August the 14th at 1 o'clock. Is that all right with you all?
Okay, Keisha, just asked you a question there.
Uh-huh,
I got that list that we had.
uh-huh.
You had 1:30, or you changed it to 1 o'clock on the 14th?
No, that's a budget workshop at 1:30. I'm saying if we had a special meeting, we would have that at 1 o'clock. And I'll give y'all an updated list.
Good, thank you.
And then I'll let you know for sure once she hears back from his agent.
August 14th.
August 14th.
Okay, can we have a motion, if that's okay with everyone, can we have a motion for that, special meeting, 1 PM, August 14th?
Make a motion to have a meeting at 1:10.
Okay, second, please.
Second.
All right. So we have that motion by Commissioner Mathis, second by Commissioner Melander. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then that motion carries. And then did you mention the September 20th FDOT workshop?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. All right.
We also have planning and zoning meetings scheduled August 16th at 4:30 and September 20th at 4:30, and we will have items on those agendas as well. So we haven't been having them regularly, but here lately we've been having them regularly.
Okay. And do you all have any questions for Ms. Keisha?
No, she said she'd send us an updated list.
Yes.
I'm trying to stay with her.
Sounds like we're some meeting folks. Okay. Okay, then we'll move on to Mr. Russell Large with Innovia.
All right, thank you. To update you on projects ongoing, City Hall is proceeding on schedule. The Keogh's Addition project, we are ready to advertise. However, DOT has to approve our bid package, so we've sent that bid package to DOT. As soon as we hear back from them, we'll be ready to advertise for that. On Avenue B, construction is ongoing. There is a water main utility conflict that we're working through. DEO has approved the change order to add the side streets to the project, and that is consistent with the additive alternates that were approved by the CRA board. So that change order is ready to be issued. I did want to take a minute to talk about the Lighthouse Estates septic sewer project. As Courtney mentioned, we did meet with Rural Development and we discussed possible funding, and this would be for the water portion of that project. Carrabelle does qualify for a pre-development planning grant, and this is listed in item 4, sub-item I on your memo. That grant would pay for 75% of the cost for developing a preliminary engineering report, and that is the first step in securing funding through them. Their funding has a loan component and a grant component. We are familiar with that program, and we've seen somewhere in the neighborhood of 70% to 30% loan to grant, or even higher, 80-20. But the PER will help the agency establish the relationship of loan to grant. So getting that PER done is the first step. By the way, there is no obligation to proceed with a project after the PER is done. So we just wanted to bring that before the board. It was mentioned at the last meeting for your consideration to apply for funding for the water portion of that project.
And I'll go ahead and speak to that now. I did sit in on the discussion. I see here she's, or the loan would be for 40 years, is that right?
That's right.
And then we need to adjust the rates. If we carried through the rates, water rates would have to be sufficient to pay off the loan. So we would have to have a rate study. And the way I'm understanding it, it would be that they would study all of the rates, just the rate system, and then all of the rates would be affected, possibly. Maybe they were suggesting that the rates needed to come down, I don't know. So that's where it is with that. I will say that we have been to the Senate and requested legislative funding twice, I think, for this project. We've been to the Restore Act. We have strongly considered Triumph, but they're, and what do we need here? We need $590,000 for this. And Triumph applications are very difficult. In fact, we still haven't completed one for the airport or the Northwest Avenue CDBG or the application for this project. It would cost money to go ahead and complete the Triumph application. We know that they want economic development and jobs, so it's not really given that the water line installation would be approved through Triumph. So I'm just saying that we have reached out over the past several years for funding here. Just trying to give you all a little bit of background. And I don't know what to say. I mean, you know, we could go ahead with this pre-development planning just to see exactly what exactly is included in your preliminary engineering report.
So what we would do is take a conceptual design for what we think would be necessary for a water main in the area. So we would apply cost history to determine how much construction dollars that would take, and then look at the rates. So there would be a revenue side and an expense side, and then we would analyze whether the city would be able to pay for that debt service based on these terms, and the grant, if they can't, then the agency would increase the grant portion of the funding program so that the city could afford it. They may look at the rates and see that the rates are lower than the statewide average, and then they tell the city, you need to raise your rates. So that's a possibility. But all that information would be included in the PER.
Is this a grant for a loan?
Well, no. Let me
Why are we
back
paying
up.
it back 40 years?
Yeah, let me back up. The first step is the PER, and they do have a grant to fund the PER, the preliminary engineering report, but that's a 75% grant. So I think that's going to be somewhere in the range of $10,000 to produce that report. Yeah, and so the city's participation will be $2,500. That's just to establish the report. So after that point, the agency would consider the rates and the total grant amount versus loan for the construction project.
So the grant's for the PER, not necessarily for the project.
Well, there's one grant for the PER, there's another grant for the construction.
Loan grant for the
Grant
project.
slash loan. Right.
If we're looking at $590,000
With the,
for the project,
And a portion of that would be grant money.
That's right.
loan grant.
with the
Yeah, loan
PER,
money grant.
would that include the rate study before?
It could be part of it. It could be, part. We would certainly look at the rates. And, you know, there are ways to compare it to statewide averages. We would have some communication with rural development during that process also. So it would be a consideration.
Now, did they say that the USDA would conduct a rate study, or that we could have that done through Florida Rural Water?
You can do that through Florida Rural Water.
Okay. And they have done a rate study for us.
Yes.
Within like 3 years, not too long ago,
Right.
and it came out very well.
Right.
And I assume normally when they do those rate studies, that's for the entire city water system, not just for that particular
That's
area.
right. That's right.
And that's what
city,
they want.
inside the city and outside the city.
Well, what's under the control of the city water and sewer department.
Right. That's right.
But it's okay, because we had one done, the last one was favorable, the last one we had.
And they don't charge the per member.
So this would be under the water and sewer
Yes.
budget. All of this, the portion that the city would have to be, would be under the water and sewer budget. When do you foresee this happening? I mean, could this be the city's 25%, or if the water and sewer's 25%, could that be budgeted in next year's fiscal year budget? September 30, October 1st, when do you foresee?
Yes, I mean, we're pretty close to that point, so, I think so. I think so, if it needs to be.
I haven't had a chance to look at anything yet.
On the water side, I'm still on general side, so. But as far as the 2,500, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
That's what I
I
understand.
think,
referred to.
I have to double check, but I think we could take that out of engineering or, that line item.
I think, but for next year, next fiscal year, budgeted,
Right.
budgeted
Budgeted.
as a,
Or we could just go ahead and budget in a grant line item, and then we can add to it if we need to.
We're just discussing the PER.
Right. Just the study.
yes. We have no idea about the loan yet, none whatsoever. We're under that, have that understanding, all of us, right? Nobody's signing anything at this point.
Just talking.
Yeah, and we have to. Sure do. So do we want to proceed with the engineering report?
Russ, was this in addition to what we already approved over there?
It is.
Yes. It's what we've talked about some already.
Right.
So do you need approval now, or is this something to move forward?
To move forward, we would like to, I mean, it's at the pleasure of the board.
It seems like Miss Christina with the Water Management District is she's wanting this, the septic to sewer project to move forward, and we're holding it up, trying to install water at the same time.
That's right.
I don't know, I mean,
Just to explain why water is important, if we install sewer only, you have a sewer only customer. So, that's difficult to bill a sewer only customer. And, there's some issues if the customer doesn't pay. So we just want to protect the city. Having a water system installed with that is a very clean mechanism to bill the customer and manage their account.
This may be a dumb question, but don't you have to have water to flush, to run the sewer?
You do, well, and they're on wells. They're on wells.
So groundwater,
Right,
you can't use that.
yes.
But if they were connected to water, if their homes were connected to city water,
We
then.
charge per thousand
Yes.
instead of a base flat
And if
rate.
they weren't paying their bill, then it would be easier to manage whether or not they had water to flush the toilet.
And their water's bad, it needs better water.
They do have
That is
helical
true.
backer reports out there quite regularly.
Well, it's an improvement, with no doubt. That's not the question here. I don't think it's a check.
Yeah. So if we're paying up, the water and sewer department actually is paying off a loan, then there's really, it's a break even. There's no, if it was being funded fully with a grant, then revenues would be revenues that could be kept, and then we could possibly lower our rates system-wide, which is what would be a nice thing to be able to do.
Well,
But it's not happening, so we can't get a grant.
at this point, it's an exploration for us. And if we can afford $2,500, it's probably worth the exploration. Just my opinion.
I think it is, that's why I looked at Keisha to see, how she thinks.
Well, we had the reduction in our sewer and water loans that we budgeted for, so I don't see it being a problem for now, the 2,500.
Yeah, and actually, I'm gonna bring that up, I think it's about, well, I don't wanna say yet, but the reamortization of the water loan last year is, it was saved, I'm not gonna say just yet, but it's a substantial
Substantial amount,
savings.
right.
I will mention that, further on down in the meeting tonight. So I think, we could afford that.
Make a motion, we go ahead and approve the $2,500.
Okay, for the preliminary engine report.
Yeah, for the PDR. Les Russell will do it for 20% versus 25%.
If I can do it for less.
Now we're negotiating.
Yes, that's right. If I can do it for less than 10, we'll do less than 10.
All right, so we have a motion for that, just to participate in the 75-25% grant for the preliminary engineering report with the USDA. We have a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a second, motion by Commissioner Melander, a second by Commissioner Mathis. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then that motion carries. Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
you.
you. I just want to say, I think that the City Hall work is going fairly well for a big major project. Of course, there's a couple of little bumps, but the site supervisor, he's just a great fellow, and he's working real well.
Yeah, they have been great work.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, then we'll move to the Waterfront Partnership Advisory Board report. And can we reach that, Ms. Tanner? Oh, yeah.
Hello, that works. I sent you all a copy of my report, which you'll notice is very similar to last month's report. Basically, for the past month, all I have done is staff the donations room for the emergency management. As you know, I'm the person in charge of the Unmet Needs Committee, and so I've seen most of you back there in our storage area. Things are going well back there. I know you can't tell, most people can't tell from looking, but things are actually moving out of there, which is the right direction. I do have 50 mattresses arriving on Monday in Box Springs, and that there will be another 50. So we are sure that there will be clean new mattresses for everybody when they get their permanent housing, which is a relief because I felt very bad about handing out previously used bedding. And other things are starting to move out, so we're continuing to try to move it down to smaller amounts, but it'll definitely be a few, it will be until people start getting permanent housing that we can get large amounts of it out of there. So at this point, I can't tell you when that's going to be, but things are starting to fall out, and we've got new moving kits. Everybody that's choosing to live in some sort of a structure, like an RV or some other kind of rolling stock that's been made available to them, are set up on their property. And we do have a few people who've chosen not to participate at all in getting reset up, and we have a couple of people who've chosen to continue to live in tents. So those people are certainly entitled to do those things that they want to do. But in the meantime, I believe we have enough goods to be sure that everybody is settled in when they get their final place. And hopefully we're being very specific about what we're accepting back there at this point. And I'm really grateful for how many of you come running when I ask for help. I do appreciate that very much. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Otherwise, that's it for me.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Tapper, we thank you very much, and certainly thank you for your service. You too. Okay. All right, there's no Economic Development Council report this evening. The Carrabelle Aviation Advisory Board.
Hi, good evening. You all got my report for the month. The master plan is coming along. As it says, the first 2 chapters have been completed. That was for the inventory and the airport usage and traffic type and count. And now they're working on the options available for the future use of the airport. Once they complete that, then they want to have a workshop open to the public about the options. And then after that, they want to present it to the commission, so they'll have a full package together for the different options that will be available for future growth. Senator Nelson's office is going to be postponed another week. I don't know if you've heard that. But,
no, I haven't.
she's looking to reschedule for the week after that.
Okay.
And the FDOT Aviation Grant Program Management Workshop is going to be about the obligations of the city or the sponsor, what they call a sponsor, whoever owns the airport, which in our case is the city. We're going to invite the county also. And they'll go over the obligations that the sponsor has to the operation of the airport, financing, and responsibilities, and then also the economic advantage of operating the airport. So it should be really interesting, and it'll help again as we go towards that NPIAS program with the FAA for further funding. So all these things, the master plan, this program management workshop, and all of it is all geared towards getting the possibility of over $5 million worth of projects at that airport over the next 5 to 10 years, and possibly more as we go along. Any questions?
Tim,
Yes.
the new hangar construction, what's the status of that?
There's a drainage problem the way that right now, and with all this rain, it's really become apparent. So I spoke with Courtney about it, and we agreed that the thing to do is just stop everything. FDOT is coming down August 8th. They have an engineer on contract that's going to evaluate exactly what needs to be done to that project. The original drawings had the drainage set so that there shouldn't have been a problem. Now, how we ended up where we're at, we don't know. And that's why we're asking them to come down and review everything. The project should have been done in March, and it's just been one delay after the other. And we expressed to FDOT that we really need to get that hangar open and start collecting the rent there. And they're doing the best to cooperate. And we'll know next month exactly what needs to be done to get it open.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions? And then I did speak briefly with our CPA, Mr. Payne, who's here this evening, to let him know that the airport is working. The goal is, one of the main goals is getting involved in the FAA National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems that would qualify for 150 grants each year for projects. So,
That's just as a basic. Yeah.
yes, and that the master plan to get that completed or underway is part of the requirements, and then that we need to make sure that our funding accounts and budgets are correct, and that our financial statements should represent the airport.
Right, everything has to be consistent, transparent, and accountable, and everything should be separate from the airport. All the expenses or income need to go through that airport account, other than the JPA money. The JPA money is handled through the general treasury just because of the balance, but the cash balance. But
And I was thinking,
that's one of the most important things that the FAA and FDOT want, is that the accounting is set up properly, so that it's very transparent and everything's accountable, because they're going to spend a lot of money here.
we may request that Mark Payne meet with us and staff, Courtney and Keisha and maybe Miranda sometime in the future, after we get finished with all of our budgets.
Right, and it'd be a good thing if they could send somebody to this workshop, because it's going to be an open forum, and we can ask all those questions, and so that we can get it right from the start.
Okay, all right.
Thanks.
We thank you very much, and thank you for your service and all of the volunteers on the Aviation Advisory Board. We have one here, Mr. Bulk, who's on that board.
Yeah, I guess thank y'all.
Okay, all right, then, we'll move forward then to the Carrabelle Human Resources Committee, Mr. Tom Magnet.
Thank you, Tom. All right, Ron? Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Hey, Tom.
The Human Resource Committee met twice in July, on the 11th and the 25th, and I believe everybody should have my report on that,
Yes.
about those meetings, the synopsis of what happened in those meetings. Basically, in both meetings in July, the 11th and the 25th, we worked on completing and the police department job descriptions, of which there are 3, the chief of police, the deputy chief, and the police officer, and that covers all the staff members of that department. And then we also, in our first meeting on July 11th, also briefly discussed the evaluation process, and I know that Courtney has submitted a form that the city had, and Tony submitted some forms that he had used in his working life, and I submitted a couple for my working life. And we'll be looking at them more closely as soon as we're finished with complete the job description process, which should be in 2 months. But we thought we'd get a little start on that, at least to familiarize ourselves with what we're going to be doing with that. Then we had a meeting with the city commission on the 26th, in which the 3 job descriptions for the police department were approved. And we also, I wasn't sure, Keisha, if you mentioned this, on the 28th of July, we had set up a meeting, 28th of August, I mean, for the approval of the HR.
Yes, sir, I mentioned that at
Did you
2:30.
mention? Okay. Thank you very much. I obviously wasn't paying attention at that.
I apologize, I kind of rattled through them a little fast, but I
That was a big
can
list,
make
yeah.
anybody a copy if they need one.
Okay, thank you. And also, in our task for August is to complete the job descriptions for the Streets and Roads Department, which we will start on our next meeting next Wednesday on August 8th, and then we'll be meeting again on August 22nd. So that's my report. If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to do my best to answer them.
Any questions from anyone? All right, then, we appreciate your volunteer work too, Mr. Tom Magnet, as well.
Thank you, and I
Thank
appreciate
you.
all the members of the committee, because they really do a great job.
Yes,
So,
I
thank you
know they
very
have
much.
to do homework
Yeah,
on it.
definitely homework.
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Tom.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, then, we will move on then to a public hearing, of which there is none. None.
You skipped a page,
I did.
or did we? Yeah.
Well, our public hearing, and then new business. Oh, we usually have public hearing before new business.
It's at the end because we've been having to close the meeting
Okay.
and open it.
All right, my paperwork is still, I've got the old format. All right, so we'll move to new business. Item 1, and we have a presentation of the 2017 audit of the financial statement by James Moore Company, and we have Mr. Mark Payne here to present the financial statement.
You guys hear me okay?
Say what?
I'm Mark Payne with James Moore CPAs, and obviously this is a very thick document consisting of about 60 pages, and we will not go over every page. But I do want to just point out a couple highlights, if I may, and I've paper clipped them and highlighted certain numbers in this audit. Page 1 and page 2, basically this is our independent auditor's report. It basically says these financial statements are your financial statements. It's my responsibility to make sure these things are fairly stated. Does that mean they'd be off a dollar? Absolutely, but they are fairly stated, okay? So just want to make sure you understand that. The other thing to understand is this is an unmodified opinion, which is a clean audit opinion with no exceptions or qualifications. Right behind that, I won't go through the detail. You have management discussion and analysis on the highlights of why things the way they were last year. Page 10 is a brief snapshot of the statement of net position, listing out all the liabilities, equity, and residual equity of the city. Total assets for the city of Carrabelle, which includes certain infrastructure, buildings, $59 million, and that's a rounded number. A lot of money, isn't it? $59 million. Total liabilities is 7.5, and if you guys recall, several years ago, that liability number was in excess of 30 million. It was a big, big number. I know you guys renegotiated with powers that be and got that down substantially to about $5 million in long-term debt. Good job. Kudos to you on that. Total net position for the city of Carrabelle, about $52 million. Of that $52 million, obviously you can't go spend the building, so unrestricted money roughly is about $3 million. Just to point out real quick on page 10, if you take your cash investment CDs, you end of the year with right at $5.4 million in liquidity, okay? Page 14, this is your governmental funds, your CRAs, general fund. At the end of the year, we ended up in the red, $248,000. Primarily ended up in the red. I know there's some strategic spending right now going on with the CRA, trying to spend those monies out, which was about $500,000. So if you hadn't spent that CRA funding, you would have made about $300,000. But I know you guys are trying to get that money spent. I lost my paper clip, but if you'll turn to page 18, here again, I'm hitting the highlights for you, because you don't want me going over 60 pages, trust me. Page 18 highlighted. At the end of the year, you lost about $800,000. Hold on, I know that's a lot of money. You gotta understand, in that number is about $1.8 million of depreciation. So this is pipe in the ground that paid for, but we're writing it off over like 50 years. So it's just, we have to match, if you would, the use of these assets over their expected life. And what kind of solidifies that conversation is the very next page, 19. If you look at your change in cash, on your cash flow statement, your cash actually went up $370,000. So it tells you, you lost 800, but had depreciation of 1.8. You're going, okay, so when you look at all that payment of debt, your cash went up about 372, so that's good. I do want to point your attention to page 32, which talks about that debt as we talked about before, just so you can kind of get a handle on what debt you do have out there. It talks about the various notes. You have really low rates on that debt. It's good to pay debt off, but these rates are so doggone low. I would just keep making those payments as they become due, because the time value of money is, those rates are unbelievable. Good job. The other thing I would point out to you, in the very back of the audit report, we did have some findings. Several of these findings are notorious for a small city. The two biggest ones on page 49 would be the preparation of financial statements, segregation of duties. Obviously, we don't have enough staff to do everything that should be done from an internal control standpoint. You kind of accept the finding and move on. It's basically your responsibility just to know that, so you can do what you want to do to monitor those activities. Here again, page 50, just making sure we're out there collecting sales tax on anything we're renting, counting inventory, continually spending that CRA like we talked about, and some other budgeted items that you normally receive from prior year. So I know there's also in the back a letter, a corrective action plan from city staff on how they plan on correcting these items. Okay? Sir?
I was just talking about myself about that.
Any questions?
Do you all have questions for Mr. Payne? Any questions? All right, do you all, I know Commissioner Miller is not accustomed to it, but I always have a list of, not always necessarily questions, but highlights that I want to make the public aware of. And so then on page 9, it talks about our long-term debt was decreased by $45,464, and I believe that was the amount of the reamortization, but we'll get to that part shortly. And then on 27, it talks about employees are accumulate and earn unused vacation and sick pay benefits. And these, they can cash out on that when they retire. And we had a retirement this year. I just notified Mr. Payne of that, Mr. Mock, so that will show us a liability to us on next year's financial statement. And then, and that is what that the employees can accumulate unused vacation, sick pay, and not comp time. Then I'm going to go to page 32. Well, let's look at 31 first. We paid off, you've got your receivable and payable funds. And Keisha and I were a little bit concerned about the water fund paying the general fund and the general fund paying the special revenue. And it happened so quickly when the fiscal year changed. It was like a 10-day span. But these payments, this $339,000 has been paid to the general fund, and the $339 paid from the general to the special fund. So it's actually down. The actual current year to date is less than what you see there. And we're working to try to pay that off before the CRA sunsets. And when we started working on it, it was a 1.571.
Remind me again when the sunset is on the CRA.
2022, excuse me, 2022.
Okay.
Okay, so then on page 32, I always talk about this one because on that top payment, that's our advanced wastewater treatment, and you see right now it's a $4,365,000, and back in 2012, this is what Mr. Payne was speaking at. It was $28,650,000, and each year it went down to $22,750,000, $12,750,000, $7,712,000, $4,507,000, $4,365,000 is what it was at the end of last year, and this September 2017. And then the second loan here, that's what we're talking about. The loan was amortization of last year, and that is saving us about $48,000 a year on that loan payment. So we're just real happy about that one. And then on 33, I have a question about this is my question for the unearned airport hangar rent totaling $5,507. I mean, we have where do you get this number?
Where do you see that?
Page 33 under F, unearned revenue.
Yeah, there was, if I recall correctly, it's the timing of the payments. So in other words, if somebody came in the month of September and paid for the next month, we would show that in that number. That's what that is.
We really have, a tremendous amount of unearned hangar rent, and I don't understand why it doesn't show. But that's something that if we have a meeting down the road here, we can discuss.
Well, this is actually money that was collected in advance
Mhm.
for the next month. Now, you may have receivables out there. I
Yes.
think is what you're.
Yes, sir, that's what I'm
Okay,
referring to.
okay.
But this is money that was actually paid.
Right, that's money
In
that we
September,
received.
but it should have been paid for
I think someone
October.
paid it a month early, yeah. It's a
Or
time-
paying
it's a
through the
time-
end of the
Just
year.
a timing issue.
Okay. All right, I don't understand all of it, I certainly
Okay,
don't. 'Cause If I
okay.
did, I'd be working with you.
Okay.
I think I
Y'all are doing good.
Okay. 37, if you want to see what the city pays for their contribution and what the employees' contributions are to the retirement system for the past 4 years, you can see that on page 37. And then findings, I was just going to go over findings with you as well. You mentioned the segregation of duties and the
Preparation.
yes, that's going to stay the same. It's that way on the county level as well, and most small.
In most small cities have.
Yes, and we're working on the sales tax and community redevelopment agency, you know, we're working on
Right,
that.
right.
And then the budgetary controls, we're working on that as well. And budget adoption, you've got here that a budget was not adopted for the port and airport. And we talked about you'll remove that
That
port.
word, yes, ma'am.
But we started with the budget, and the first budget was 2016-17, is that correct? And so you all worked 16, you're doing your third budget now coming up, sorry. So they are doing that, and they're working hard to be self-sufficient.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
All right, and that's all I have. I do have, I had one question, but we got that answered already. And then we passed an ordinance regarding boat ramp fees that would be earmarked specifically for repairs and maintenance of our 2 boat ramps and the directly related facilities. And I question whether or not we should have a separate bank account for that to monitor the revenues and expenditures. You think so?
I would probably do so, yeah.
Okay, all right. Especially since it was an ordinance and we've got people that want us to build a swimming pool with it. And we wouldn't done that anyway. All right. So, that's it for me, okay?
Thank you
And,
very much.
Anything else?
Just from my first experience, I read through the report. Some of my questions I have are not conducive for this meeting.
Yes, sir.
I understand your report, and I'm with her. I don't understand everything about it because that's your job. I understand the important parts of it in the summary where you went over. It was a good report. It was good information for me.
Good. Very good. Okay,
All right.
thank you.
We thank you. All right, so, if we're gonna set up a bank account here, do we need to have a motion for that?
Yes, because you'll need to put signers on the account as well.
And it's like we have to have minutes, or that has to be included in the minutes. So if you all, it's a pleasure of the board, if you would like to set up
Make a motion to set up an account.
Okay, all right. We have that motion by Commissioner Allen, and we have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, I think I heard Commissioner Mathis jump the gun on that one.
That's good.
Okay, and so that's Commissioner Allen, Commissioner Mathis to set up a separate bank account for our boat ramp fees and revenues, and is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then that motion carries. Okay, so now item 2, under new business.
And that'll be the same signers as on the other funds.
I would think so. That would be Commissioner Millender, Commissioner Walden, and Mayor Paz and Courtney Dixon. Is that all of them?
This is just the list of villages.
Okay, thank you. All right, item 2, discussion of possible action concerning high water bill at address 1416 Parker Avenue in Lanark. And I believe we've got customers here. Hello, nice to see you. Would you let us know your names?
I'm Julia Zimmerman. I'm Deborah Bowen,
Okay.
and my mother is Leila Mae Hanson.
Hello, Ms. Leela.
Back there. We have Mr. Crump, who's with us. Thank you for seeing us. We have a huge problem with the water bill. And we haven't had a water bill over, what, $150? And how many years since '84?
Ma'am,
So-
speak into that mic.
Is that better?
That's good.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And we just were here trying to find out what happened, and my sister has all the notes. Sorry. Back in May, we received a water bill for $1,055, or over $1,000. The water was $755, and the sewer wasn't but $255. I called Renee, which is a sweetheart. I'm gonna tell you that right now. We have come 300 miles to see you tonight. And we were told, I asked her, would she please go and check the meter to make sure the readings were correct. And she had someone go out, and he told her that it was running really, really fast. Well, my dad died in 2016, and my mother hasn't been here since 2016. She has had the water turned on a couple of times because we thought we were coming, and then we didn't. But every time we ever come, the water's turned off, the gas is always turned on. The power is actually pulled out of the wall. I mean, literally. So everything's always cut off if we do come. And then I called, and I think I called you, my hair was on fire, because my mother was very upset. And so you've advised me to have someone go out to the apartment, and Mr. Crump is the man that went with Jared Mock from the water department out there. There's no leaks, there's nothing running. The water pipes is actually overhead. So the ceilings are still intact, so there's no water anywhere. And for that much water to be run, everything would be soaked. I mean, it would be, it's just amazing to know. And I'd like to know why the sewer is not the same as the water if the water is $755 and the sewer wasn't at $255. And we had no leaks at all. Let's see. So I guess what we're asking you tonight, my mother is not able to pay $1,000, but now Renee did reduce the bills. The sewer, she did take it off. However, that's $755 for an 87-year-old lady to pay that she didn't even use. So, and like she said, I asked her a while ago, they lived down here for a long time before my dad passed away, and they've never had a water bill over $100 since 1985. So, y'all, please, we're asking you, please.
I can say, I believe I know why the water is so much higher than the sewer. The sewer and water are a certain amount of gallons. The sewer gets charged for as many gallons as the water is charged. But then the water is tiered. The first 3,000 gallons is so much for 1,000 gallons. The second 3,000 gallons is so much for 1,000 gallons. I believe I might have it in here, actually. I do. So, you know, it's gonna cost, your water's gonna cost more. Your water, the first 3,000 gallons is $3.30 per 1,000. 3,000 to 6,000 gallons is $5.15 per gallon, and 6,000 to 10,000 gallons is $7 per 1,000 gallons. And you know, you had several thousand gallons, and that's what made the water bill so tremendously high, is because we're on a tiered rate required by the Water Management District to promote conservation, and that was required by the Water Management District. It's very sad. I know it, because I've had it happen to myself twice in the 90s. One time my dad, we had a water faucet in the middle of the yard, and he backed up to turn around in the driveway and leave, and we were living in Georgia at the time, and he backed over the water faucet, boom, and $800 later, I got a bill in Georgia at the mailbox. I just about fell down. It was awful. We had to pay.
But we didn't have any leaks. We didn't have anything running.
Mr. Crum, would you like for him to speak?
Well, he's welcome to speak, but I don't know, I mean, I don't know what to say. But Mr. Crum.
Did you say one of our, you said Jared out there, right?
No, we sent, Justin went out and checked it. Now Jared Mock went out with him, but he did not go on behalf of the city. He was off work when he went, so that's why I didn't ask Jared to be here, because he was working a side job essentially when he went out there.
Did Mr. Jared go inside?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, because he was not on city clock. He was working on Mr. Crum.
We looked for leaks, we checked our whole house, everything was intact, no leaks anywhere in the building. Outside, we checked the outside, turned the water on. And of course, that's all I know about water, that's a pot of water, and I do know that.
And I believe
I don't think I know they didn't, so they weren't even here.
Do you have a outside water faucet?
Yeah, but it wasn't
on.
intact, just like it should be.
Intact, somebody may have used it.
Yeah.
That's a lot of water.
Yeah, I know, we paid some of the same bills like the mayor expressed. Paid $1,100.
Could it have been a meter?
And I believe I explained that over the phone to, I don't know which one I was talking to, but about having it sent off to be inspected, and if it comes back that the meter is working, and usually these meters are running behind and they're not registering the actual amount that's actually going through it. But we would send it off to have the meter checked, but if the meter comes back that there's nothing wrong with the meter, then you still have the bill, plus you have to pay to have it sent out, because it costs about $150 to have them tested. So we offer that to everyone. We've had a few people take it.
And the water go. And I know Commissioner Allen's had to pay a bill, a big bill. I don't know how much.
But you live here. We don't. We haven't. She hasn't even been here since 2016.
Was the water
But I knew where my water was
Yes.
coming and going.
See, the water was off. Wasn't even on.
The water was turned on March the 20th. And we don't know when the leak happened, but we sent Justin out on May the 3rd after they got the bill on April the 30th. So the water was on. It had been turned on. And you can see where the reconnect fee was charged on the 25th there. So that's the $50 we charged to reconnect it.
Yeah, I understand. One of the three ladies, I don't know who, called to Renee, to our clerk, and asked for the water to be turned on. That either one of the three ladies were coming down for the summer, or some family was coming to be visit. So it was turned on at their request. And what happened after that is hard for all of us to know and to understand. And I know that the Love Center had the same problem. And they're still paying on a bill, as is Miss Frances Brinkley, and another person named William Strange, and another person.
But do they live here?
Some of them live here, some of them don't. The Love Center, they use their building about once a month, if that. So.
Is there any way that we can ask to have this adjusted again, please?
I don't know what to say. Honestly, we haven't done that in the past, I can tell you that, so we'll leave that up to the commission. This is very difficult. It's difficult when you see the elderly, and when you don't know where the water came from, and if we don't know, then we're all of us are worried when the water gets turned back on again, will we have the same situation if we don't know where? Now, I will tell you, Miss Frances Brinkley's water, it took them a long time to come to terms with it, but a tree root had grown into they were still getting water pressure, but a tree root had grown through the water supply line and had caused a leak. And every time the water was turned on, the meter was spinning, but they couldn't see water in the yard. It was just going straight down under.
Did you he turned it back on and it's not moving? I mean, it's nothing. So we know we don't have a leak now.
Turn it on and then cut it off. It's stop immediately.
Do you want to have your water meter tested? If you ain't got a leak, and you got this type of water bill, you got a bad meter. If it's not a bad meter, you got a leak. It's one or the other.
Well, and not to cut the commissioner off, but just to share with you, Masonic Lodge has a large water bill here in Carrabelle. They have 2 meetings a month, and one of the toilet valves went bad. No one's there for a month. It went bad, and it leaked, and we had one heck of a water bill. We paid it. But that's what it was a toilet valve. You couldn't find any signs of a leak anywhere because it was all going out through the sewer. I'm not saying that's what it is, but I'm saying that's what happened to the Masonic Lodge. As an example.
We turned the water on. There was no leak anywhere. No water, not anywhere in the house. It had to be outside somewhere.
But it was spinning when we sent Justin out on May the 3rd. It was spinning really fast when he went out there, because that's when we got the call that the bill was high, because these don't show up on the leak reports like the electronics. So when Justin went out there, it was spinning, and then we had it turned off then.
He turned it off, but no one ever notified us. We got a bill after, because I had talked to someone, and 15 days later, after he read the meter, then we got a bill. And I was flipping out because I'm like, oh my God, and what is the next water bill? And that's when I called you, and you told me that he read it, and he came in and told you that it was spinning.
That was Renee.
Yeah, okay, it was spinning. And then, and I asked the question of why weren't we notified then? And she said, well, they cut it off.
So if we got the meter checked, it's a bad meter,
You good.
then we good with the month, with 1,000? Because then it was a bad meter, right?
Yeah, but
If the meter's defective, then,
meter's
you
good.
know,
What if it's
then you
good?
pay base fee
And you, another $150 in the hole for it to keep it.
So that's a gamble.
That's a
Yeah.
gamble. But you're pretty happy.
And like I said earlier, normally these older meters in Lanark are reading about 92%. So
Well-
they're not even processing the water that's even coming through.
Keisha, when they turned it back on and you said the meter was spinning, did they determine where the water was going at that point?
No, from what I understand from Renee, at meter readings, Randy noticed it was spinning, turned it off. When they turned it off then, so they didn't get any more water usage because nobody was home. Then when they got the bill, they called and we went back out and checked it, but it was still off at that point. It was still off because Randy noticed it when he was reading the meters and turned it off and told Renee to turn it off. But when they got the bill, we sent Justin back out there to turn it on and look at it, and it was spinning again, and he turned it back off, and that's when we told her she needed to call a plumber.
But if someone had told us when he first read the meter and it was spinning, we might could have found the water and where it went. Exactly. Thank you. That's what I'm saying. I mean, we could
Well,
have
you know,
found
we
out
have
where the water
1,800
was.
customers, and it's nearly impossible to call every one of
I
them,
know,
so.
and one
Well,
clerk.
One
yeah.
clerk.
I'm back to the meter, okay? I'll pay, how much was it, 150?
It's
To get
approximately.
it checked. If it's the meter,
You don't owe
And,
nothing.
and when we take it out, we
If
can
it's
put a
not
radio bed
full,
in that we can data log.
That's fair.
That'll be a
That's
technology.
fair.
I'll
That's
pay
fair.
the 150.
That's fair.
Okay,
That's
thank
fair.
you.
The minimum. You pay the minimum.
You pay the minimum, yes.
The minimum of what?
The minimum, the base water payment.
Yeah, basic water bill. I would agree.
Yeah, $57, $60.
If
So
the
what do
meter's
we
paid.
do next?
If the meter's paid.
If the meter's paid, correct.
So,
I'll have Renee send the water meter
Okay.
off to be checked.
Okay,
that would be worth it. And
We
thank
may,
you
we
very
may
much.
make a
Thank you,
motion,
ladies.
we may have a motion on this, so now, I just want to confirm so that they'll know that you'll be getting a new meter, a brand new meter of radio read meter. Is that right? That can be data logged, every toilet flush, every hour's data log, we'll know how many gallons you use per hour on this new meter that you're getting.
Oh, good.
We can see, we'll be able to see.
That's in the 150?
No, ma'am, we'll replace it once we take it out. We're trying to replace all our meters with electronic
So
read.
this was an old meter.
A lot of them in Lanark, were already there. Carrabelle pretty much has them, and we have to slowly change out portions of a route because
Okay.
the meters aren't cheap.
What do I do next? Do I go to see you? or-
Renee will contact
Renee?
you. Yes,
And
ma'am.
if they'll contact me.
I think I have all your numbers here.
Julia Zimmerman.
All right, let's have a motion on exactly what's gonna be done then. What was decided here? We're gonna pull the meter, is that correct? And they're going to pay the bill. And if the meter's bad, they're gonna pay their base pay. And if the meter is not bad, they owe the bill.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, all right, so we have that. We have by Commissioner Walden and a second by Commissioner Miller.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, then that motion carries.
Who made the motion?
Commissioner Walden and second by Commissioner Miller. Thank you. Okay. All right, so then now we will move to item 3, discussion and possible action concerning allowable uses in the C1 zoning district. Request to allow for a special exception for boat storage in table 2.02.01 of the Land Development Regulations, the LDR, and that is requested by Mike Mock. And then I asked the attorney, we were going back and forth on a Florida statute and a section of our city charter. We're having a little debate, and the attorney's going to talk about that in a moment.
Okay. What my opinion is that issues like this come before the city commission. If you all would like to refer it to P&Z, because that's who would come up with language, recommendations, and that sort of thing about basically language to implement something like this, language as to where it would fit into the land development regs, all that. You would refer it to P&Z. If you don't wish to refer it to P&Z, then you simply, you don't have to do anything. But otherwise, you would vote to refer something like this to P&Z. That's my interpretation of the charter, as well as the section of chapter 163 that delegates basically that the land planning agency, which is the P&Z board for us, will provide recommendations to the commission on all land development reg amendments. And if anybody has any questions about that, I know that the mayor and I talked about it extensively. If you wanted to ask me those questions, I'm happy to answer them again, and certainly anybody else. But that's the procedure. The commission would provide a basic referral to P&Z if they want to see action on this.
And I'm not going to belabor it anymore. We've had plenty of discussion on it, and we'll accept the attorney's opinion at this point. That we need to decide whether or not you would want to refer this. It's to the commission's pleasure to refer this to planning and zoning to develop wording for an amendment to the land development regulations.
Yes, ma'am. I got just a quick statement I'd like to make.
All right.
I would be in favor of looking at something like this, but I wouldn't want to send it to P and Z with the perception that we're in favor of just changing it for this special exception. My thought process is try to look at it from a planning perspective and maybe let P and Z do that, look at it from a planning perspective and see what areas of the city we would want to fit something like this into our LDR in our planning process. Something similar to what we've struggled with a little bit on RV parks.
And I did speak to along those lines, pretty much exactly the same to the commission, and I mean to the attorney. And I'm not sure if this is the, this is more what you're talking about is more in the updating of the comp plan and the LDR. The LDR is part of the comp plan. And something like that, and we do need to designate some spaces in the area for, I know, for certain campground.
Yeah.
And I talked to the attorney today or Tuesday, whenever we discussed this extensively both days, that we might need to designate an area for more boat storage. But I don't think that the P&Z, I'm trying to be careful because I don't want to send a message to the P&Z. It's not time for us to send our opinion to the P&Z. We would send to them whether or not we want them to address this, and then they would send back their recommendation, and then we would go through, if then a party requests a special exception, then we would go through the special exception procedure. But
Could we make a motion then for P&Z to look at it without prejudice?
well,
Yeah, you can certainly refer this, call it the issue.
And that's kind of what I was gonna say, maybe take out the C1 zoning and just boat storage in any category and let them look at each individual category. And then that would kind of take the specifics out.
Yeah, now I was, and since you say of any category, if the commission approved to refer it to the P&Z, then I was going to ask for inclusion of P&Z to look at allowing boat storage in the industrial zoning, because we do have a person, a company on the agenda that wants to do that in the industrial zone. Boat storage. So if a person was given a lease to have boat storage in the industrial zone, then we would be back at this point doing the same thing, sending it back to the P&Z to see if they wanted to allow, or what their recommendations were for special exception in the industrial zone. We don't have that request yet, but it's bordering on. We're actually going to deal with the part of it here in the agenda tonight. So, but we do need to, as the attorney has told us time and time again, update the comp plan and the LDR. And the ARPC does that. That is one of their specialties. They have a regional planner that does that, and I've talked to him, and he would be glad to come and speak to us in the October or November meeting about a technical assistance grant from the Department of Economic Opportunity that would pay for his, or the APR's consulting services to update our comp plan LDR, which is going to need to be done sometime next year. It's about 2020. So.
What would that cost us?
For them to come speak to us and tell us, then he can tell you what it would cost, but what he would do would be apply for a grant, and he wants a charge to apply for a grant. Then that grant will include their administrative costs.
Okay.
And then they will come and consult, and now help me, Mr. Hartman, come in and consult with the planning and zoning as they work on the new LDR and comp plan, and then that would come to the commission then as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and he would walk us through that.
Well, I'd like to make a motion, we take that first step from your suggestion and offer from the
Yeah, well,
ALP.
they-
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
we'll,
He
what-
does, that's right. he
What I'll
does.
do, I'll just call him back and ask him just to come talk to us. We'll put it on the agenda
We
for
finished,
this.
we finished,
Okay.
Commissioner Allen's motion.
Okay, so did you make a motion, or
No, I
did
was
you
just
just,
asking a question.
can it have, be asked that they can consider it with non-prejudice?
Yeah, in other words, that's, we don't care.
At this point, well, and that's the message that we should, I believe we should send, that we don't care. I mean, we do care, but.
We don't care.
Yeah, we care enough to send it to them about where, you know, what are the recommendations on boat storage in the city of Carrabelle? And then you look at different zoning categories, just as we talked about, and make some recommendations to you all.
What do you think about that, to send it to them in general?
Let me, before I vote on this, understand where we at. We're not denying Mr. Mock this time, right?
No,
He cannot do it right now based on.
Yeah, right now, the way it's zoned. So we're gonna send it to the planning board and see if they'll give us a recommendation.
But in general, is where do we want boat storage in the city? We have C2 that allows it as a
Well,
right.
It's commercial property already. We just
Yeah,
have to
and
change.
we have that C2 on the south side of the road, but, you know, we have some others that own big swaths of it that it's undeveloped. So we have already designated places for this in the city. Do we want to expand that? And that could be what P&Z said, yeah, we want to consider expanding it here or there under these conditions, but they can get all that in front of you, so you have something to look at.
But no, nobody's being, and that's, I said that to Mr. Hartman, I said, if we say no to the request, then we're not allowing Mr. Mock to get his fair hearing through the P&Z. If we say yes to the request, then we're not allowing the public to have their fair hearing and speaking out on what they would like to see. And they would do that at the P&Z and at the commission meeting.
And again, we're not doing this specifically for Mr. Monk, we're doing it as a
Yeah,
general.
so we want to allow
Yeah.
it to expand.
Exactly.
Yes, and, right, and so, we'll just see. Now, tell me what your motion was again, what you suggest the motion should be.
Oh, boy.
Do you have that in writing?
It would be to refer to P&Z, a request, basically, that they review the city LDRs and make recommendations as to additional areas of the city where boat storage would be compatible. Possible.
If any.
If any.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion. To do what he said.
Okay.
Did you get that down, teacher?
And we have 3 P&Z members here, so you all heard that as well.
Don't talk about it.
You should have been writing it down. Okay, I'm glad you're here tonight. So we have that motion by Commissioner Allen, and do we have a second?
I'll say.
Second by Commissioner Melander. And any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries. And I want to thank the 3 P&Z members for being here tonight so that you have a better understanding of what is happening. I do appreciate that. Okay, and then on what we just discussed, I will call the ARPC Executive Director to get their executive planner down here in November or October and just make a presentation to us and we can decide from there. Okay, all right. Thank you all. Okay, and then we'll move on to item 4. Or do we want to take this could be a little bit of a long item, I think. It's about the spray field, the tower. I have been through and this could take a little bit. Let's take a recess. I've been through it's called the
Okay, I
would like to call back to order our commission meeting here on August 2nd at the Carrabelle City Municipal Complex, and we're on item 4, discussion of possible action concerning cell tower lease of Sprayfield. And is there someone here representing this company? Courtney, they're not, I don't see anyone. Okay, that's kind of unusual, but they're interested, right? Okay, so we'll, I guess, I beg your pardon, no, we're not gonna pass on it.
I mean, pass forward and go to the next.
I'll make a motion, we table.
Okay,
There you go. That's what I meant.
unless we want to review the, but, okay, we have a
Let
motion.
me ask
Okay,
this,
but we
and
have-
certainly I think it's probably appropriate to table it, but let's do this so we have like, moving forward, because I'm thinking of it like the lease on the building. Is everybody get me your comments? I have not gone through it in excruciating detail. And, I know the mayor has, and she has comments and observations and everything else. If everybody can provide me with those, even if you just want to scan those in and send them to me, I'll reach out, or Courtney will, to the person at the tower lease company, and we can get it a little more in line and have something that addresses some of the concerns for the next meeting.
Okay, and I have quite a few, so,
And I've reviewed the whole thing, but not in detail the way the mayor has, but I have in summary. And there's a lot of questions, and I had quite a conversation with staff about it already.
and I haven't had really in detail with Courtney, just briefly with Courtney and Charlie, because it would be on the Sprayfield area. So, I don't know, if we even may have to schedule a special meeting or workshop for it.
Well, right now, we loaded it, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're loaded with meetings, so, but we need to go over, we need to review their agreement.
Yeah, there's about 60 pages, not 30 pages.
30 pages.
30 pages.
And we really do, we can't accept it as it is necessarily. So we have a motion to table this item until a representative can be here with us, and that's by Commissioner Millender.
I second.
And we have a second by Commissioner Allen, and discussion. And I just want to say that I would request that all the commissioners now, gives us an extra 30 days or so, to review this agreement, and I had it on my desk, and when it was tabled, it was on the agenda last month, and it was tabled, and I said, but I had to force myself, and you're gonna have to, y'all need to read this thing, and make some notes where you have questions, ask Courtney, call the attorney, whatever, and be prepared next month, so when the people are here, we can ask them the questions, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and then that motion carries to table this item. All right, and we'll go now to item 5, discussion and possible action concerning city commission meetings. We have 2 items under there. A, suggestion to hold 2 regular city commission meetings each month, and B, to include department staff reports from department heads during commission meetings. Okay, so we'll just attack A first, holding 2 regular city commission meetings each month. So let's have some input from.
I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
I don't think it is.
I don't think it is. You want to stay in these long meetings, huh?
They're gonna be long too if you put 4 of them on there.
All right, so we have.
We have discussion.
All right. Don't make me be the tiebreaker, Commissioner Millender. What do you think?
Well, I mean, my opinion is just as I've stated before, due to the workload is the reason why I would consider the 2, because it seems like we're special meeting ourselves to no end. And that's my only consideration, is doing it and including some of these meetings in the daytime. Now, I was elected to come and work for the city, and I'll do whatever the majority wants to do, but that's just my opinion from a working perspective.
If we could do do a day meeting, I would be a little more compatible with that, but I have other things to do on Thursday night of every month, every Thursday.
There's a lot
If
bigger
there's conflict
cities,
amongst
Carrabelle, that only has one meeting a month, and they discuss, I know, a lot more. Tallahassee's got more going on than Carrabelle has.
I can say this, if Mr. Frank sat here 4 hours,
I'll be sitting here all night. I
He
may go to
days.
sleep.
he's 80+ years old, I can sit right here with you.
I can sit here too.
I respect that, Mr. Mathis. You-
Okay.
I do.
I may sleep, but I'll be here.
All right.
Now, I would say that we do schedule, right now we have the ability to schedule special meetings when needed.
Yes.
And we do that, and we are doing it, and there's a lot going on in Carrabelle. We have quite a few projects going on. We're getting ready to get another one out of Keogh's Landing. Now we're looking at trying to get the water installation and sewer out to Lighthouse Estates. I mean, we are really overloaded. Staff is, and I know I've sent a list to Courtney so that she would know that I know staff is working, and they're booking it. And Miranda as well. So, I fear about adding another meeting when we can have the ability to do special meetings at will. And maybe when we have special meetings, maybe we need to, if we know something's coming up on an agenda where someone's already requested an agenda item a month in advance, well, we could put it on the special meeting and kind of help break it up a little bit to the commission meeting. And it gives us the opportunity, if we don't have a lot going on, because I look back when I first started as mayor, we had 3 items on the agenda. But then when people see that there's activity going on and you got people working on a commission and there's a lot of projects, they get excited and everybody wants to get in on the show, and they start coming and putting they want things done on the agenda. They ask things done at staff. You're getting phone calls all day long. I think that possibly we could readdress this certainly after the first year. And Keisha had a suggestion that if we were to go to 2 meetings, absolutely don't do it until we get moved and settled into the new building, because that's a project that's on their plate and our plate as well, and we need to get situated on that.
I just want to do what's this whole board and the staff is, if this, we can just do the special meetings when we need them, and that way we can schedule at their convenience. That's fine with me. I thought it was a good idea first, but I didn't.
It may not be.
And I like the meetings in the daytime as well, and it keeps staff from having to work late at night. They don't want to do that, or they have youngsters.
Yes, I understand.
And now, what do you all think about having department heads report during the commission meetings? Of course, that would make it longer, or they could come and report when we have special meetings in the daytime where they wouldn't be needing overtime or comp time.
I think that would be, when we have a special meeting, they could come in, and that way they're already on the clock.
Yeah.
And they ain't gotta pay them overtime or do just them off.
Okay, and the chief has a comment?
And we just maybe think about the department heads reporting to their commissioner and let their commissioner do it. I'm here at every meeting, but some of the other guys aren't. That may be an option.
Well, the department head, Mr. Painter, for years, and Mr. Keith Mott have been reporting to me every month, and the reports end up being almost 2 hours. It was 2 hours this past. I mean, they've got a lot going on at the water and sewer, and Charlie had a fabulous report this past time on all of the repairs and projects that they have going on. And if I tried to include that myself, well, you all would just...
Yeah, we don't want to see any meetings.
I know.
We can do the highlights, the important things, and you don't have to get everything in. A lot of it is.
Well, they could submit written reports, and then they could be part of the record. And then if anybody from the public was interested, we could supply that as part of a public record request.
And that's what I thought about too earlier, was start out, have them submit a written report, just a small report. And we could have that to read ourselves as well. If we had a question, any of us can go to any of the department heads. I mean, we're not restricted from visiting with any of them.
And the thing about it, Mayor, where you took a 2-hour report, I don't think that's being suggested. It's just, it's a summary type report, you know, communications, not a detailed 2-hour report.
Yeah, I understand. And it might be nice to even have them come and maybe rotate. Have the chief report one month and then Mr. William and then Mr. Charlie, so that we can see them even. You know, it's nice to see them and see what they have going on.
Am I gonna have to keep up with who's coming?
I don't know. Yeah, we're just in a discussion phase. So at this point, then we've determined that we'll not go to 2 regularly scheduled city commission meetings at this point. We'll readdress it maybe the first of the year, take a look, see if things don't settle down some. And then what do we think about staff reports?
I like the red ones. They want to come in every quarter or something like that. I don't think they need to be here every night. Maybe when we have special meetings, when they already on their job, come in, they already on their work anyway. We've been having a lot of special meetings.
I know it.
That's just my opinion.
Okay. What do you all think?
Yeah.
It's great.
And Commissioner Melander, I know you'd like to, I think, like to see them at a meeting.
No, I'm good with either, as I said. I mean, you know, even the 2 meetings, that's, I don't have a heartburn. I want to do whatever works for us.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. I just thought that, or my thinking is that would work good for us, and also moving some of our meetings to daytime hours or work hours would be better on staff and better on the employees as a whole. And that's my opinion.
Well, we have all of, yes, sir?
On staff reports, they could report to us any issues that need to be brought to the commission, but we wouldn't have to bring everything, because most of it is just.
It's just
routine.
communication.
Routine.
Yeah, how many times they did this, or how many times they did that, doesn't mean a thing. But if there's a real problem, then it could be a bigger problem. So, yeah, let us bring it to us, we'll discuss it.
Yeah, when they need equipment, stuff, they can come in.
And we would like for them to come and see us during our budget workshop. Would that be nice? And we have 2 budget workshops scheduled, so maybe we need to talk to them and see when they might want to come in and talk to us. I know we're going to have a budget workshop. We've got a couple of other people that get grant money from us that will be coming in to talk. So do we want to just go ahead and request written reports at this time from department heads? We have 2 department heads here now, Courtney and Keisha. They're with us every week, every meeting, and then the chief is here with us most every meeting as well.
Basically, all we got is William and Charlie.
Yes. And Charlie's trying to come. He's come to a few. He wants to attend more meetings. He has said that. So, do we want to request written reports at this time, or?
I think that each commissioner just could make a choice of whether they want it written or they could have a conference.
Okay.
And it needs recorded to do it.
All right. Okay. All right, then, we'll just make no action on this item then. And see, I actually have for my notes possibly written reports. Okay. All right, we'll move to, we're still in old business. But this is old business. We're moving to old business. Item number 1, discussion of possible action concerning city election matters. So we had a very good special meeting on July 26th. Ms. Riley came and gave us a comprehensive presentation and answered all our questions regarding changing city election dates to coincide with county election dates. And she had a presentation. Did you all get a hard copy of that presentation? On several options that we could do. And Mr. Hartman, did you want to kind of give a quick rundown on that, or?
I
you want me?
can give the real Hartman summary version. And everybody's here can disagree with me, but what we had was, I had also done some research. Heather from the elections office came over, supervisor of elections came over and described what her office could basically take on for us and the cost savings of that. And essentially, if they take over our elections, meaning they will conduct them, we don't have qualifying, or we have qualifying, but we don't have primaries, that they would just conduct our elections. I believe part of the genesis was it saved us about $5,000 to do that, but then take over our elections, handle them for us, basically the paperwork and all that. There were other options, but really there's kind of in-between measures. But if they take over our elections, we would have to change our election dates, which would again impact, at least in one cycle, the terms of office. But really, we would have to change our election dates. So in order to coincide with the county election dates, so that those, essentially it's not redundant. It's just when she does her election cycle for the county, she can do ours. And we save $5,000 by doing that. My lawyer really only think that's the positive side. Not the only, but one of the negatives is that I just mentioned, is simply that we are a city and we have our home rule powers, and when we give up some of those home rule powers, it can be hard to get them back, or maybe they're not conducted the way we would like, that sort of thing. But it's certainly a cost savings and not a problem. It's my legal opinion that we can change the election dates by ordinance. Almost anything else that we talked about would require a referendum. And depending on the direction the city goes, I have a whole bunch of Attorney General's opinions, a whole bunch of statutes. Whatever you all decide, I will chart the course and tell you whether it's by ordinance, referendum, and all that. And of course, when we get into referendums, I've always been of the opinion also referendums are not, it's basically abdicating your authority when you do a referendum. Because the only way you can ever change that is by referendum, as opposed to an ordinance where you can amend it, times change, you can evolve. Referendums lock you in place forever until you do another referendum changing the old referendum. So we don't really have a long history of referendums in the public, but that was my takeaway from the supervisor election. And she gave us, like I say, some other options of kind of doing this part but not that and everything else. But again, I think it's either look at the savings, which was $5,000, or obviously we continue doing it the way we've done it for the last. I can. Yeah, I can run right off.
No, I was just wondering if you did.
I can summarize the other options real quick.
And I did have extra copies if somebody forgot
And
theirs.
I will say while he's looking at that, the savings was $5,800.
So that's it. That's right. Is if we switch our election date, and we switch our election date to September 1, and let them handle it, $5,800 savings. Keeping everything as is, and we get rid of early voting, then we would. Where are we saving less?
We would say.
Estimated cost is $4,000. So again, that doesn't save us anything. That's not enough. I mean, it's an option, but that's just something. And then moving the city of Carrabelle municipal elections to the first Tuesday in November to coincide with general elections, with the city to conduct qualifying, submit candidate names, the elections off to place on the ballot, and that sort of thing. Estimated cost is $0. Unless we force a 2-page ballot, then we got to pay the cost of that, which you said is in the hundreds of dollars.
200.
There we go. And leaving elections as is. And then moving the date to run simultaneous with the November general election, with them managing the entire election. So
Costs approximately $600 to $800 if they manage the entire election.
And sort of the bottom line is, if we give it over to them to do, then we say $5,800. If we don't,
Every 2 years.
we continue to do it, and everything in between is basically us holding on to pieces of it, which is up to you all, but, you know, we're either gonna, it's like the building department, or I shouldn't say that. We would either give it over to them and enjoy the cost savings, or we nibble at it and enjoy less cost savings.
Okay, well, basically to me, if we were going to change the dates, there's two options that I see viable, and I've already talked to Keisha about it and asked her to be thinking about it because I'm going to ask now. It's option 3 would be option 3 that would which would cost the city nothing, $0, and Keisha would continue to conduct the qualifying. That's where you bring your paperwork in and qualify and show that you set up your campaign account. And she would submit the candidates' names to the elections office and continue to collect the financial statements once a month or every 3 weeks, whenever that is due. And then the county supervisor of election would do the closing out of city canvassing and the post-election audit. And that would cost the city nothing. So the responsibilities would be split between the clerk and the county. And this would happen in November, and not at the time where it's right now it's a rough time for the clerk, because right now elections are held during budget season. I mean, it's really a load at that time for the staff. Then the option to coincide with that would be option 5, still run simultaneously with the general election, but have the supervisor of the elections office manage everything, including the qualifying and submitting of names and accepting the financial statements every month or 3 weeks. And that the city would have to pay a fee of $600 to $800. So there's where the city would save $5,000 on option 5, and about $5,800 on option 3. So, and then of course there would be.
Did we ask Heather if that's including all the advertisements, because that's a
Thank you.
couple.
I think you asked that. Yes, you did. I went back and reviewed so that I would be ready for this, and yes, she said everything would be done. If she does everything, everything is done. But if we go with option 3, you would be doing the advertisements as well. But this was, this item was requested by a member of the public, and as I did a little research and realized what it would say, then I contacted the Florida League of Cities, and all of you all a couple of months ago got that survey where it says about 50-50, and Heather even reported that it's about 50-50 on the cities, whether they manage their own elections or let the county do some or all of them. You would have to coincide, you'd have to, there would be a change in the term of office to allow for a smooth transition. And I did a little bit of research, talked to the attorney about it, and it seems like that can be included in the ordinance. What a referendum would be required for would be to run by seat, and to change the term limits, meaning the number of terms you would be allowed to hold. It was that would require a term limit. Now, I would ask a question to Mr. Hartman. Say we wanted to go with this is just saying, just for example, if we went with option 3 and we saw got a report from the clerk in the future, the next 2 elections, that this is really still more than I can handle all of this. It's still towards the end of the budget season when qualifying starts. Can we move to option 5? Could we move to option 5 administratively without having to go to ordinance? Option 5 meaning?
Yes, as long as we're not changing anything other than the election date, as far as administratively.
Yes, sir.
I don't think we would need to pass another ordinance.
Okay.
When would qualifying begin if it was held in November?
How does it do, it's 2 months in advance now of the election day?
We begin in June.
Roughly 2 months. June, July, and August, which
August.
is roughly 3 months, right?
Yeah. And so it started September.
Right.
1st of September, end of August.
And the simple way to think about it is if there's an ordinance and it has material terms, and literally by switching options, we're not changing any of those material terms, we're fine. It'll be automatic. So we would keep the ordinance simple, so we avoid that.
My opinion, I'm a strong advocate of home rule powers, and I'm very skeptical about turning over anything to the county. We've had problems with that before, when the county tries to, it mainly had to do with the oil spill thing. Y'all know the fuss I got into with about that, because the ordinance said the coastal political subdivision said Apalachicola, and ours were a coastal political subdivision. The county said, no, we're the only ones. They were actually, in doing that, they could, this is immaterial, but that's just some of my feelings about it. I really, secondly, that probably won't be an issue with me anyway. You know, when my term's up, I'm not sure I want to run again at this point.
Well, if it.
And so whenever y'all want to do it. The other thing too is the number of signs that get out on the yard if we're all going at the same time. We have enough signs in the yard now, don't we?
Yeah, but we have signs every year at this point.
Yeah.
Every year, and we
But-
did discuss.
But they would be doubled up.
Yeah, we did discuss it. It's a good possibility of a better voter turnout when you have all of the names on the
But that's
ballot.
just my comment.
Well, let me,
Y'all do what you want.
this is obviously lawyer thinking of different eventualities, but I'm thinking of the 2000 election, where you had folks interpreting, what's a vote, what's not a vote, that sort of thing. So, and we currently are the judge of our own elections, and our really staff, and I would have to research this to tell you exactly, but bottom line is in-house, we handle that right now. So if someone, if it came down to, hey, there's 3 votes or difference, and hey, I want to look at those and go through them and everything else, the people who work on that are say responsible. They're, word eludes me, but they are, they're held accountable by the voters, by their employers, the commission, everything else. If there's any shenanigans during the election, if someone else is doing it, it's unlikely, but it's possible that they could decide who's going to be a commissioner or a mayor in the city of Carrabelle, and we don't have anything to say about it like we would normally. As far as, when I say normally, it's do we disallow this ballot because they didn't mark it close enough to the circle, or all that junk that we went through in 2000. We judge that now, as opposed to if we give it all to the supervisor elections, and some of the options don't give all that, but some do. If we gave it up to the county to do it, some may say, well, that's like Switzerland doing it. That's a neutral party, that's a good thing. Or, and of course everybody should be neutral when they're looking at those things, but if someone acts inappropriately during that process, they're accountable to the city. So, but whereas the county's not accountable to us.
Can I say something?
Yes,
The county is accountable for us. We vote for the county commissioner. He's running for one, he's running for a seat there. There's perfect accountability.
Yeah, but they're not.
He's
I
on
say
the
they're
county
not.
staff.
Yeah, I mean, we're a drop in the bucket countywide. I mean, it's a significant drop, but we don't control that, whereas we have full control. We are the judge of our election now, period, like that. I mean, I understand what Tim's saying, and he's right. We vote in the county elections, but And that would potentially have an impact on a commissioner.
And is this the supervisor
staff.
election also accountable? And we all vote for the supervisor election.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Did you want to speak, sir?
Somebody's got their hand up there.
Okay.
I was looking at you, Chief.
He got his hand up there.
Point me out again. Okay. It really comes down to between 3 and 5. I'm personally in favor of either one, preferably 3. But when you get down to whether or not home rule is the leading thing, or whether you get to a decision as to, or a consideration as to whether we're giving up anything to the county. As a voter, I would prefer that an outside entity other than citizens of Carrabelle monitor what we do, rather than have an enclosed, incestual relationship where people can manipulate if they want to. If the county is controlling and regulating our voting, that's much better than if we do ourselves, because we can't trust ourselves. If you think about it, you can trust yourself individually, but as a group, I don't think so.
I just want to point out that nothing, that just didn't make sense to me, because the canvassing is a public meeting and everyone is public to sit in on that and see how the votes are counted. So nobody shows up, but it's advertised as a public meeting and everyone is welcome to sit in those rooms and see how those votes are counted. And nothing is incestuous.
I appreciate that, but I'm thinking about an attitude rather than the actual act. If we have the city do everything by itself, there are going to be questions raised. I have heard questions as to whether everybody got a fair shake. If the county monitors what we do, monitors the elections, I have faith that since they have oversight, there's oversight over them, I think that they'll do a better job than we could. In addition to saving us a lot of money.
In other words, we as a city, we're a bunch of crooks, but the county is a bunch of upright people.
Never said that. Never said that.
Well, the county sits in on every election process as well. It's the city and the county working together, always has been.
Okay, and I was looking at it as a money saving and a savings on the burden of the staff, because it's a bad time of the year, is what it is, because of our budget, and then also it's bad because we have one group of commissioners working on the budget, then we have an election, and then we can have 2 or 3 other new voted in people to vote on the budget. The election comes right in the middle of our budget season, which I don't know how it got like that in the first place.
And that was my biggest issue, was working with a group of commissioners through these budget workshops in August. Your election's September 6th, your final budget's September 24th, so you change hands, and then all of a sudden at the tentative, they may want to start changing things, and then you have to start the process over again, and it does get, everybody has their difference of opinions.
And if you have someone, I'm interested in the budget, and I start working on the budget, or looking at the year-to-date in June, as soon as we can get the year-to-date, when we have 9 months. And Keisha knows I've already been in her office, starting to work on the budgets, and we've worked out the CRA budget pretty good already, and we're getting ready on the general fund, and so, you know, you work, and then someone else is elected to vote on it and change the work, so.
Let me, and I know this is bad, I don't want to use the bumper, and I don't want to put extra work on Keisha, but, you know, they created the charter back 100 years ago, and they may have set these timelines for exactly the reason that you say, hey, that's a hassle. Well, people run, and they may run for fiscal reasons, and they get elected, and they still have a say before that budget is finally passed. I mean, I've seen that with elected bodies before, where an outgoing body, if you call them lame, sometimes lame duck in a way, they're trying to get their agenda through before an election circumvents that. So the founders of the city may have had that, I don't know this, obviously we don't have, like, you know, they may have designed it exactly that way. So you have the old set of eyes on it and the new set of eyes on it before it becomes final. That just occurred to me while we're talking about it. It seems like
I just want to point out that this isn't every year, this is every 2 years, so.
Yeah. Every election cycle.
Right.
All right, any other comments at this time? Well, if you want, go ahead.
Oh, I've been trying.
Oh, sorry.
Well, it's basically been covered. I respect what, everything that's been said. I haven't looked at it from the perspective of confidence on the election staff from the county level or the city level. I hope that I could have confidence in the election staff on both. I feel confident, but I was looking at it from when the subject was brought up, truly from the perspective of timing, workload, and cost savings. Those were the 3 items that I was primarily looking at. Up to the board on what we want to do, for sure. But those were the 3 items I was looking at on making the change. As far as that, I don't think it's whatever the board wants.
So do we want to take action at this point?
My opinion is that we ought to look at this a little further and not take any action tonight, table it or postpone it. I would make that motion.
Okay, you want to table it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, then we have a motion to table this item by Commissioner Allen. And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, and so we have that motion by Commissioner Allen and a second by Commissioner Mathis. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then that motion carries. All right, we'll move on now on item 2 under old business. Discussion and possible action concerning proposal for lease of the Carrabelle Industrial Building from Little Custom Homes.
Okay, and we can pass this item quickly because there is no update.
Okay, there is no.
Ball's in your court, and we're waiting to hear back.
All right, I do, of course, I'm gonna have something to say. We haven't heard, and you gave the update on July the 26th. That was the most recent update, so there's nothing happened since then. And you haven't heard anything about getting a social security number from them or not, so that a tenant screening and financial background can be completed. Okay. Now, I will say that Ms. Courtney has received an email from Kip Kane. He said that Matthew Morris with Coastal Cottages of Carrabelle will be submitting an application for the committee's approval as soon as possible. He said expect contact with Matthew by week's end. Ms. Courtney, have you heard from Mr. Matthew Morris? No. Okay, and Kip Kane wrote to please place Coastal Cottage on the September 6th City Council agenda for a presentation and not on August 2nd. So he's requested to be on the commission, on the city agenda for September 6th. And so this will be another company called Coastal Cottages. Okay, all right, get him finished and out of the way. And so what are we trying to say here? I want you to, I would like for Courtney, and I talked to Dan about this, we don't have any kind of an outline procedure on people coming for proposals for the industrial building and other places. And I would like to just do a little brief procedure now. When someone comes, explain that we have an application and give them that application, and the Social Security needs to be put on there, so you let them know the tenant screening and financial background will be done. And then request from them a business plan or proposal if they have one. It's not required, but if they have one. And when you have the application completed and the screening, the tenant screening and the financial report and their business plan, if they have one, all those items, you have those, you can circulate those to the attorney and to the commission, and then you can put it on the agenda so that we have something to review, and that we're not just listening to something and we can't make a decision on it and whether or not we want to move forward or not because we don't have a good background. And how does that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
All right, okay, so that's what we'll do, and if you can contact Mr. Kane and tell him we would like to have these things 1 week before, or to go out with the agenda package, and so that the attorney can review as well. And then we want on the Social Security number would be the person who's going to be signing the lease. Isn't that correct, Mr. Hartman, or going to be responsible for the payment?
The way we've drawn it up is that obviously the lessor, lessee will be the entity typically that is business out there, and then we're asking that a principal of that entity personally guarantee the lease. So that's why we need that person's Social Security number so we can make sure it's going to guarantee.
Okay, the person who's going to guarantee, that's who the Social Security number needs to be. And we would like to see that person. You know, or if someone else is going to represent, maybe we want a little written something giving that person the authority to represent, if it's not the person who's going to guarantee the lease. So, okay, all right then. That was item 2. There's no action to be taken there. And so then we'll move on to item 3, under old business, discussion of possible action concerning proposal for lease of the Carrabelle Industrial Building by Martin Marine, and Mr. Martin Ben Baruch is here.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Did I say your last name right?
Yes,
Okay. Okay. Ben Baruch.
yeah, that's like higher authority. Yeah.
Okay, I know.
Good evening, everybody, and you'll know that I'm gonna have a few words, but you see it in my proposal also. And, at this time, I just want to request, in addition to the areas that are already leased in the building, that area will be another 6,000 square foot approximately, at the same rate that I'm paying already, which is 0.75 a square foot. The only difference is that right now I'm leasing it on a temporary basis, and I'd like to have it on a more permanent. I understand that the whole thing with the proper zoning is in stake here, and it will probably, if you all agree to this, it will start taking effect when you have the proper zoning in place. So that's pretty much all I I dropped you off the paperwork for that.
Okay, I didn't have, you dropped this off today, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't have time to look at it, so this is the first time I'm hearing of it. So you're requesting for this to take effect when proper zoning is in place?
Yeah, pretty much. I understand, like, I can't do any boat storage before that.
Yes. And so then at that time, well, you would have to come, if zoning was recommended by the, I'm trying to say this right, if it's recommended for special exception for boat storage in the industrial area by the P&Z, then it comes to the commission, and the commission would have to approve that recommendation. Then at that time, then you would have to come back to the P&Z and make sure I'm doing this right now and apply for a special exception to the P&Z. And then you would have to, if the special P&Z approves that special exception, then you would come to the commission and have the commission confirm that approval. So it takes a few steps.
Well, if the P&Z recommends approval and then the commission, I believe we'd have to pass it by ordinance, and that takes another 2 months to read
Yeah,
the
but
ordinance.
once that happens, then that's just allowing a special exception. Then if
Then, right, he would have to send it to his neighbors within 250 feet.
he would have to go through that
And
special
then go back to
exception
P&Z.
request. So it could be 5 to 6 months if everything
Correct.
is smooth before you could do this. If.
Yeah, I understand.
And so we can keep this in mind, is what I would suggest. He is paying 75 cents a square foot. That's it was suggested by the DEO, $1 a square foot for this area, so that's not bad. I think it's in line of the price he's offering. And a temporary lease instead of just you have your lease right now is notice, 30-day notice or something like that, isn't it? And that's kind of hard to conduct business, I think.
I know.
But we're glad to have someone out
It's
there.
like I'm hanging in the air all the time,
Yeah.
you know, like, especially with so many other companies trying to propose different things.
Commissioner
What is the section you already have now?
Sorry?
It says in addition to the sections that I already have, what is that?
Well, right now, I don't know if you were involved when I built a landing craft for the World War II Museum.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like that same area, which is 35 by 75, I believe, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So all I want now is the same width of what I have, but all the way to the other end of the building, which is to the bathroom there. There's another.
Okay, so to the end that's towards the most of the hangar, I mean the doors that roll up, not the end where the office is, but
No.
just go straight on.
Yeah.
Towards the bathroom.
Straight on.
All right, and would you want
Yeah, I'll have to have access from the other doors to put boats in, but yeah, and that's.
Thank you.
Okay, well, this gives you more time to think about it too, because we've got to wait to see what happens from planning and zoning and what the commission decide on boat storage in the first place. But it gives you more time to think about it and maybe make a business plan or something that you might,
Okay.
or a drawing or something.
And I understand if you want, like, I can drop off my information so you can do a background check.
Yes, but like we say, it'd be, as Keisha confirmed, 5 or 6 months if everything goes smoothly. So
Okay.
it's not an immediate rush.
Okay.
But, take your time and make the presentation, and we appreciate you coming here and making this offer and your dedication to trying to get your a spot there in that building. And we know you're here.
Yeah, I'm here to stay.
Okay.
I've been in Carrabelle for 10 years, and I'm probably going to be very good too.
Mark it off. Okay, we thank you. Okay, so there's no action to be taken there. Thank you for coming to see us. Okay, item 4, discussion and possible action concerning recommendations by the Carrabelle Aviation Advisory Board, and we've got 3 items under that. Item A is, well, I guess we'll just deal with one item at a time. Item A is reimburse the Carrabelle Airport budget, $8,325 in back rent. The City Commission unanimously agreed is owed by Mark Nobles and unanimously agreed to reimburse to the airport in that amount as part of a settlement between the city and Mr. Nobles at the January 4th, 2018 Commission meeting.
So, Mr. Nobles has been paid, the airport hasn't. So I'm just asking the commissioners to direct the city staff to pay the airport in the amount that was agreed to.
So what Mr. Noble, excuse me, Mr. Sullivan, sorry. Mr. Sullivan is asking then for the commission to direct staff then to go ahead and deposit that money into the airport account.
As agreed.
As agreed. Now you have items that could be, you need, I know that you need to build a shed for the tractor that continues to sit in the sun and the rain and the weather and deteriorate.
That's exactly it. We've got several things that need to be done out there that are not covered by any grant money. One of it is a fuel system. The pickup in the fuel system has never been correct. We're at the point now where we're almost out of gas again, but there's $4,000 worth of gas at the bottom of that tank that we can't get to. That, I think it was about $4,500, $5,000 to get that repaired. The city, the little car we have out there, the starter generator is not working. I don't know what the cost of that repair is. But there's other things that, I mean, it costs money to operate that airport. Irregardless, so this was the agreement. This is what y'all agreed to. And I'm just asking if we go ahead with it.
Can we, Mr. Hartman, can we direct staff to go ahead and make this deposit to the airport account as we agreed? And we did agree that this $8,325, and I went back and looked at the video, was owed by Mr. Nobles for one hangar that he occupied in which he stored various items. And Mr. Nobles did not own an aircraft during that time that he was city's not manager, but airport manager. And we agreed also that it would be there was 2 hangars that we discussed, and then we agreed that these hangars would be separate.
As far as the agreement was voted on, it was approved. That's the amount of money that was to be credited to the airport. And as long as everything being the same, the city, there's whatever credits and debits, that $8,325 going to the city, to the airport money, to the airport fund. So, I mean, that was already voted on, that was approved. That you can certainly direct staff to do it, but it doesn't even really need another vote, because that's what the settlement agreement was voted on, says what happens.
Okay, well,
and I did have a conversation with staff and goes that there is a credit of $100,000 plus owed by the airport to the city, but Keisha says that is grant, and that'll even itself out in 3 years. So, because if there was, then I would normally say, I think there was talk back and forth with the auditor on this, but it should be accounted for, and we need to account for this on the books at a minimum. But it also sounds like the airport needs money for operations, and that instead of, they need it now, not 3 years from now.
well, I did now on this payable, receivable, interfunds. I spoke with Mr. Nobles there. I was going to speak with him. Yeah, somebody. I spoke right over there, the CPA, and he said he didn't understand that needed to be worked out, especially if you're going to go for the FAA inclusion to get FAA money. And we're going to try to meet with him after all the budget season, when things calm down, have him come down and meet with Keisha and Courtney and Tim and myself, and let's get it worked out where it shows different. He's not showing that as being airport money owed, because that money is really going from the DOT straight into the general fund. The general fund manages all of that. The airport
and
fund
and because the agreement says what it says, whoever the signatories on the checks are, you can just direct Miranda or Keisha to grab a check, whoever signs it.
All right, do we need a motion? Can we get a motion for that?
You can certainly do one, but I think it's redundant because it's the agreement that we called for, and you already voted on it.
Okay. All right then, so we'll direct staff to write a check or deposit $8,325 into the airport account. Then, item 2, begin aggressive debt collection as advised by the city attorney for the $21,750 the city commission agreed is owed by Dr. Grantham as of July 2018.
And that's actually up to $22,200 now, because of August rent. This was discussed at length many months. This has been going on for 11 months now. Everybody agreed that this money is owed by Dr. Grantham. There was discussion about the lease, not having a lease. Commissioner Milner asked that in November 2017. He asked, if we do not have a lease agreement with Dr. Grantham, how is our attorney going to prove he owes us that money? The city attorney's response was that makes it more difficult, but it's doable. The fact that his plane has been in that hangar all this time, there has been some communication back and forth, and he has never denied that the airplane was in the hangar. Commissioner Milner, could we pay Mr. Mark and then go to Dr. Grantham, and he might just say, hey, we'll go to court. City attorney, I've been practicing law for 20 years now, and I never say 100% we've got this. But this is no different than someone renting a house or paying a mortgage, dealing with someone who has used a hangar and not paid for it. I'm not concerned about collecting. That if someone said, I'll see you in court, I would say, okay, that is not a good case for him. Commissioner Milner, my question is, what is it going to cost to do that? City attorney, it will cost a whole lot less than what he owes. That makes financial sense. The point of all this too is there's 8 other tenants out there that have paid their bill and continue to pay their bill on time. The federal statute and the state laws, you cannot treat one tenant different than the other. If you don't collect this money, or at least attempt to collect this money, the rest of the tenants should be reimbursed for the time that he's not paying. Myself, it's $5,200 myself. There's others out there that have been there as long, if not longer than Dr. Grantham, that would expect $22,200. And by law, that's what you have to do. You cannot discriminate.
I'll address some of that. Is there would be no discrimination. Certainly no one who stored a plane out there is entitled to any refund, period. The fact that someone does not pay rent out there is a problem, and we have to form up the best legal case we have to go after them. And I have, I think we talk about different quotes from different meetings. Pre-settlement agreement, we settled on Martin Noble's use of hangars out there. And we're paying to the airport fund money to cover that, because that was part of the settlement that we approved. Dr. Grantham, we had nothing in writing from him on a hangar out there. His plane was in it, but that's not indicative necessarily of it being his hangar. I mean, Mark, my understanding is, flies his plane. So if you put other people's planes in your hangar, that's not an issue. And we know, I think, historically, some of that happened. I went to Miranda to gather documentation in order to collect and have a case, where I file a complaint. And typically on a complaint, you want to be able to document, preferably in writing, but as we said, hey, sometimes you don't have anything. But in this case, I was actually pleased to find what looks like June 24, 2016, Carrabelle Airport Hangar 10 eligibility and usage agreement. So not a lease, but certainly something from him saying he's going to use that hangar. And he's using a hangar out there. There's a number on it. Can't read it, but it's on there. So I'm telling everyone that 100%, I mean, I'm going to say 100%. I just said before I don't do 100%, but fine. Not as close to 100% as you can get. We had a clear case from 2016 through current day to collect money from Dr. Grantham for hangar use out there. He has submitted 2 checks one for 17-18, one for 18-19.
No, he submitted one check. Mark Noble submitted the other check,
On his account.
I guess. The
So-
check has no hanger on it, no hanger identification on the check. And the check is written for the incorrect amount because the hangar rent increased the first of the year to $2,520, and the check is written from Mr. Nobles for $2,400, and there's no hanger identification on it.
Okay, and again, all this is sort of a non-issue because we didn't cash it. We're not cashing because we wanted to get sorted out the Noble settlement, as well as internally, we've had a lot of dispute over how much is owed.
But
Tim is
but
talking
it was
about
agreed,
$22,000.
it was agreed what was owed back in September 9th, 2017. It was agreed what the total amount that was owed.
When you're talking about the $21,000 amount?
No, I'm talking about $27,825.
Yeah, no.
Was the total amount, no, hear me out. That was the total amount that everybody agreed to. That was what was owed, that's the
I'm
figure.
sorry, you agreed to.
You and the commissioners. It was agreed that the city attorney, $27,825 hangar rent, he acknowledges is due. That's what the agreement was, that was due.
I'm sorry, who agrees that's due though? Is it
The lawyer, Noble's lawyer, and you.
I believe that was submitted, and I don't have it with me, but Noble's, his bill, his invoice, I believe that
Right,
was.
and there was no dispute about the hangar money that was owed. The hangar money was $27,825. Of that, $8,325 was Mr. Noble's. The remaining was $19,500, plus the rent from September 2017 to August 2018.
We're bound. I understand what you're saying as far as a discussion amongst the commissioners and his lawyer offering and us counter offering, and then we end up with a settlement agreement. That agreement is what's binding. I mean, just a discussion, because we tend to not do shade meetings. We just have these long discussions here, and the numbers change between non-aeronautical use, aeronautical use. We, for lack of a better term, obviously, we started high, they started low, or they started high, we started low.
But then 27,000, but you all agreed to that. You agreed to that. And then,
If that's part of the settlement agreement, then we did.
And what you're saying, it wasn't just discussion, you said it would be on record and we will be bound to it.
And
It's on
then
those
we
papers.
also agreed that we decided that this amount, it was this amount, but then we said we're gonna deal with it separately. We
Yes.
said it would be two separate issues,
Deal with
Dr.
Grantham,
Grantham
separate from Nobles.
and Mr. Nobles. So Mr. Nobles now is settled and done, and we need to deal with Dr. Grantham. And Dr. Grantham, Miranda has spreadsheets that she has developed where she has accepted checks from Dr. Grantham, checks from him where he has been paying rent off and on since January of 2010. Dr. Grantham has been paying rent himself.
Okay, hang on, because
Okay.
this is news to me. I mean, this is new. So what we've got
And
is,
she-
we've got checks from Dr. Grantham paying
Yes.
rent on a hangar, not a Nobles hangar, his
His
hangar.
own hangar, and.
Which hangar is his own?
I would say it would be hangar 4.
Okay.
Hangar 4 in 2010 and hangar
But
4.
Okay, and
So-
this is the thing, that's fine, and that's good. That's evidence of, call it his responsibility. But we are bound by statute of limitations, which goes back 5 years, and obviously my job is, when I say, hey, I'll see you in court, I gotta win. I have to have documentation that supports my case. And if someone has canceled checks by Dr. Grantham that are recent, when I say recent, within the last 5 years, that can help me put that thing together, then my opinion will change from, we've got a very clear case from 2016 forward. Before 2016, if Mark Nobles steps up and takes the position, well, I want to get into all that, because that's what sort of Tim's talking about, is we can talk about all kinds of different things at meetings, but what it matters is what we settle for, how we concoct that, but not even what the circumstances are around it, what's in writing. There's a rule against bringing in outside verbal, oral things. So when you reduce something to a settlement, we're bound by it, and that may be good.
Why a settlement, though? Why don't you go after what is owed? What was agreed to?
What I'm talking about is settlement notice.
Oh, okay.
But that's finished.
we're through with it.
Yes.
Let's take up Mr. Graham and do whatever we have to do.
Yes.
Get it done.
Okay. And this is the thing, you all can direct me to go after, you pick a number out of a hat, tell me to go after it, and I'm telling you that it's my job is, I mean, clients come to me all the time, I wanna sue them, I wanna do this, I wanna do that. And my job is to tell them realistically, this is what I pay you to collect. And if you wanna pay me to try and collect more than that, that's fine, and we'll go for it. But be prepared for me to bring you potentially some bad news, because I have done it for 20 years.
Dan, why don't we get these checks that he has
Yeah,
paid,
that would be
deduct that from what he owes, and then we're gonna go for what he owes. No less, no more.
Yep. And but this is the thing, what he owes, what people think he owes, versus what we can prove he owes. I mean, I'm in the business of proving that he owes, boom, 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 and those numbers have always been changing. Those numbers are not,
It can't,
that's still.
but there's no reason for those numbers to be changing. He owes what he owes.
I will say that Miranda has good spreadsheets. I've been over them with her last summer. And she actually sent out two invoices last summer, one in July and one in August. One was sent to the office, one was sent to the home address, a certified return received, and that was received. One invoice was for a total of $11,400, and the other one was for $11,300. I don't know why it's a $100 difference, but she does have spreadsheets where she tediously and meticulously went through each year where she received payment from him, or sometimes Mr. Nobles paid his rent, and she has included that, whether it was Dr. Grantham paid the rent or Mr. Nobles paid the rent. But she used hangar 4, and then the past couple of years the plane was moved to hangar A. But Miranda has meticulous records on that. And then this does not include the past 2 years that we haven't collected. We have 2 checks, one from Mr. Grantham, or Dr. Grantham, and one from Mr. Nobles.
Okay, and if you all want to give me clear direction, just follow up on what Miranda demand she sent to him, then I'll handle that. I will send him a demand letter saying this complaint's gonna get filed in the next 10 days, and we'll chase him for the 11,000 plus, whatever that is, forward.
And then the forward, I don't know, we can't ask him to pay, the rent forward, going forward the next year. We need to bill him directly for that.
Up to current, I mean, if he's
Yeah, up
used
to
that
date,
hangar.
up to date.
Like that, and usually when you file one of these, it's always rolling, I mean, it's continuing, so in the case of going for a little while.
And some of these years were paid by the month, and some of these years were paid, like for instance, 14 and 15, a check was written for the entire year, and the annual rate is different than the month rate. So then,
Well, if he's paying for it, then we're not collecting for it.
oh, excuse me, he didn't pay for it.
Got it.
But some years he paid the whole amount, and some years he went by the month, and you'll see that when you look at Miss Miranda's spreadsheets. We need to determine too, also, does Dr. Grantham want to continue leasing that hangar? Does he want to continue leasing?
I'm sure he'll let us know when we go
And
after.
who's writing the checks? Is he
$50,000.
writing the check? Who's, this is kind of like the Kip Kane thing, who's?
It doesn't matter who's writing the checks, it doesn't.
Okay.
You could pay individuals can, you can, as long as they make it clear, which you're right, they didn't on this other check, that we didn't cash, but they need to make it clear who applies to, anybody can pay anybody.
And then if he wants to continue, we need to get a hangar lease agreement signed by Dr. Grantham as well. Is there a hangar lease agreement signed by Dr. Grantham?
No.
Okay, I have not seen
No.
it. So.
We don't know, nobody has seen any activity at that hangar for a couple of months. So I don't know whether there's an airplane in it, whether it's being used or not.
Is it hangar 4 or hangar A?
It's hangar 8.
If there's a plane in there and it belongs to him, I say we lock that thing down and hold it till we get our money.
We have lease, we might be able to.
But I don't know how you would do that. You would have to go inside the hangar.
Yeah, we look, he's submitted 2 checks. We've chosen not to deposit them. Obviously, as your lawyer, I'm saying this is not the time to self-help and do all that. We can certainly, he is a doctor. We assume, he received both of the letters. He's aware this is an issue, and we'll take it to court. If he doesn't, jump on it.
I would like to make a motion that we have the attorney put together a program, work with staff, put together a program, and come up with, especially the legal part of it, that's what he's got to do, and that's what I'm listening to closely. And the part that, that concerns us, the money's owed to the city, and put together a proposal and a plan, which is by law where we stand legitimately, and go forward.
Let me, I don't mean to sound flippant here, but this is another thing on that, is we're talking about a small court, a small claim, or I shouldn't say small claims, it'll be county court, not small claims, it's over $5,000, between $5,000 and $15,000 we're gonna be seeking for him.
Maybe I'm
you're on the right track.
Okay.
Because it's sort of what you're hearing me say exactly that I don't want to take a case to county court and spend months and months and months with different numbers and different testimony from Mark and arguing about probably $5,000 or $6,000, because then the cost of it exceeds that piece of it, as opposed to the money that we know we can collect. But you know what? With the checks and some of that, I'm curious. If we've got checks from in 2015, 2014, that kind of thing, that does make it kind of more interesting. How's he going to deny that he was renting? He might say, well, I was paying Mark's hangar rent. But no, if he's renting, if he wrote a check for hangar ed in 2015, I think that's in this year or whatever, indicated that he's renting that hangar. He owes the 2015, even though we have no documentation to that effect. And that's good.
Yes,
How we do, we got to check.
I guess that's what I'm saying, when make a proposal, you're our attorney, to make a proposal to come back before this board, well, we'll have clear direction on which way to go.
That's fine.
Does that make sense?
It does. No
Well,
problem. I can draft a complaint. I can draft
Well,
a letter.
right now, we're tossing figures back and forth and some things that are not certain and uncertain and so forth, and we want to do what's right. If he owes us, he owes us, and without being said, but we've got to do what's right. That's the reason why I say that.
Yep. Understood.
And there are also people that have been there all that entire time that would certainly testify that that hangar was being used by that airplane.
And this is the thing too, Tim, and I may be missing something here as far as the FAA rules and some of the other things, is the hangar, the ownership of the plane. I keep discounting that. I say, hey, I could rent a garage and park someone else's car in my garage, like that. And that's how I'm treating it. If I'm treating it wrong.
No, that's wrong.
Okay,
that's wrong.
That is wrong. So you can't put someone else's, it was improper for Mark to put that guy's plane in his hangar?
If that hangar is going to be stored in that airplane, if that airplane is going to be stored in that hangar, the owner of that airplane should be leasing that hangar.
I know he should be, but I mean, is there a rule or a law to that effect? I know
Well, we'll find that out at the workshop, because that's part of the questions. It's my understanding that every airport that I've ever been involved in, and I've looked at a lot of leases here recently, and every single one of them, you have to own an airplane to lease a hangar, because that is the purpose of a hangar.
I understand that.
And
but then if I had a hangar,
well, then that's
plane in my hangar.
That's subletting.
People doing that at other airports.
That'd be subletting. If you've got somebody else's in there, you're subletting, and most places don't allow that.
Okay, but if there is, I mean, if no money. I mean, I understand what you're saying is if they had a sublease agreement with somebody.
But it's like you had pointed out before. It's like an apartment. If you rent an apartment to somebody and they let somebody else live there, is that acceptable?
If you've got a lease that says you can't do that, it's not.
Anyway.
But we don't have a lease. We just have folks that have hangars. They may or may not have a plane to put in there, but there's a plane in there and someone else's plane that they're flying. Is this situation?
But we need to go forward, we need to have leases. Everybody, and even Commissioner Melander said that a few months ago, we need to have leases.
Didn't we move ahead on that?
Yes.
We already did.
And no subletting, I think our lease says that, no subletting.
Yeah.
And I've looked at 5 or 6 other leases. I sent Courtney samples of all of them. They all say that, and they all require an airplane identification number. And that's good for insurance, and just pure liability.
Right.
And I mean, the FBI called here some weeks ago looking for an airplane, and we didn't have any way to figure out what airplane numbers we had out there. So out there, no, they didn't want us to know, but, if we had leases, we would know. Or the staff
And
would.
maybe in the lease, you know, we could say the lessee needs to match the title of the plane, because I would almost guarantee you, people have planes that are in the names of companies or however, because they're writing off, and in the lease is in someone else, you know, it's in their.
Well, I believe our new
principal.
lease does say that.
So perfect, so that's good.
And we took our lease from all the other leases and from the FAA and FDOT guidelines.
Yeah, no, that's good, and because what we're dealing with this historic, you know, problem.
And then, you know, this is all part of the growing pains of the airport. We're getting ready to do a lot of development there, and these things have to be taken care of, and so we can continue to grow.
Okay, Commissioner Melander made a motion for the attorney to develop a program to determine what is owed to the city and develop a proposal and plan where we can move forward on this item and to present that to us as soon as possible, next meeting, if possible.
Yeah, I'll have it ready for next meeting.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Okay, so that was by Commissioner Melander, second by Commissioner Mathis. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, then that motion carries. All right, so we have one more item, and that is, they're requesting begin immediate eviction, but I think that would be a moot point if this.
Yeah, I'll include that in the complaint. We'll have it for money damages and eviction.
Okay.
Does our insurance pay for Cobra plane that's in that hangar?
No, that's part of the leases. You're supposed to have your own personal insurance.
I was just wondering because you could have
Right.
a $10,000 plane and say it's a Learjet.
I had the same question, Commissioner, because that statement was made just a few minutes ago.
I'm not sure. I'll have to look at that lease, but most leases will have the insurance company and the policy number on it. I'm not sure.
They're supposed to submit it with the lease.
Right.
Now, that makes sense.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you for your volunteer
Yes, thank you.
service, and we have Mr. Bert Volk here, and Mr. Jim Bryan, and then we have Bert Worthy, who's busy managing the Legion tonight, so, thank you all for your service. All right then, and then we'll move on to number 5, this shouldn't take too long, I hope. Discussion of possible action regarding duties of the volunteer dock master, and we were all at the July 10th meeting where I read that from a note from Mr. Weisner where someone came to his home about a warning that he issued, and right now you all are handling the warnings, is that correct, Chief? Because Mr. Weisner's still under the weather? Okay, and I talked to the Chief about this. Do we want Mr. Weisner to continue issuing warning tickets, warnings? And the Chief said that's okay, but you particularly do not, and Courtney, to want him to approach people out there using the boat ramp and say, hey, you didn't buy your daily ticket, or quit washing your boat, or don't throw that fish overboard. If he sees something illegal going on, he needs to call the police department. Is that correct? Okay. So
I think that was understood the night that we agreed for Mr. Weisner to be our dock master, because the subject came up, we talked about, you know, if we wasn't gonna give him a little bit of leeway, there was no use having him out there. It's not that he needs to get in any confrontation or any, you know, direct approach like you just said, but I support him giving, I thought of a word that I wanted to use, a notice. Not a violation, not a ticket, not whatever some people would interpret a fine. That's only by Chief Hunnings and his police department. But a notice that they haven't paid their boat ramp fee. And I support that. You know, I think back at that meeting that you were talking about, and I haven't had any complaints with Mr. Weisner. I know we've had some citizens that have been, for lack of a better word, not necessarily distraught, but unhappy about having to pay the fee, and they get a little piece of paper on their windshield saying, you know, pay your fee, and they said it was a ticket and that kind of stuff. And to me, at that point, we need to support Mr. Weisner, because he's just doing what he's supposed to, and he hasn't confronted the people. Because if they go confront him, which we can't control it, but they shouldn't do that either, but we can't control everything that the people do. But I still think we should support Mr. Wisener and let him continue on with what he's doing, and putting the notices on the vehicles of non-payment.
Right, and the notice or warning, what does it say? I haven't seen it. Warning.
Warning.
But it's not, they don't have to come in and pay it. It's
Yes.
just a notice or a warning that, you know, that
That's
there's a
right.
daily fee, or you don't have your sticker or whatever. They could throw it in the garbage and,
Well, staff, I've talked with staff, and I'm sure y'all have too, and staff has told me there's been a great number of people that get that notice or warning, they run out here and pay their fee, or either they put it in an envelope with their $10 in it and put it in the drop box. So, you know, the people that want to pay their fee, they're gonna do it, so.
but I think that the chief's major concern was that he was approaching folks and, yes, sir, would you like
What I
to?
talked to you about, and what I meant by approaching folks, I had a couple of people come to me about him approaching them down on the dock, and specifically asking them, have you got your permit? And, I mean, it's up to you guys, but I don't think that he will be approaching them and asking them for that type of stuff.
Well, that's not what I suggested.
And
I don't think
I
so.
think maybe you wasn't understanding what I said to the mayor earlier.
Yeah, that he should not go directly up.
The wrong one.
Yeah,
that's what
right. And if he sees someone washing a boat, in which that's one of the items that he watches for us,
That's right.
he should call the police department and have them come over and stop the folks. And, so, I think that maybe we could direct Courtney and the chief, just to, when Mr. Weisner gets back on his feet, he is doing a good job for us, just to reassure him not to approach people for his own safety.
Right.
We don't
He
want
may
to.
run into a nut.
Yeah, there's some out there, aren't there?
There's some out
Okay, and I just want to
Yeah,
say
because I didn't
that,
have a sticker when I launched.
And since Mr. Weiser has been under the weather and hasn't been issuing the warnings, we have seen a decrease in the revenues that come in every week. Quite a bit.
That's great.
For the majority, the honest people are gonna pay, if they get the warning, they're gonna go pay it. You know, some people just don't even pay attention to signs. And, you know, so for the most part, there's always gonna be the rebels like Mr. Mathis that just gonna do it
Not gonna
anyway.
pay nobody.
but it's new still, and people aren't
Because they're
accustomed to
getting
it.
used to it, yeah.
Okay, so then we'll just direct them to just reconfirm that with Mr. Weisner when he gets back on his feet, and we hope he's back to work soon. We appreciate his volunteer work as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, is there anything else then? All right, may we have a motion to adjourn?
No public hearing.
Oh, you know, I've got my public hearing on the wrong, but we don't have a public hearing. I've got it in the wrong place. Do we want to continue to have it at the bottom, Ms. Keisha, at the end of the meeting, public hearing? You know, it used to be in the beginning, but we can, it doesn't matter to me, it's no big deal. All right, may we have a motion to adjourn? Okay, so that's by Commissioner Melander and second by Commissioner Walden. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, that carries. Good night. Thanks, y'all.